Imagine waking up and immediately turning a root facility into a war crime scene while screaming you're the ultimate life form. He clapped Orochimaru's whole network, folded pain like cheap paper, and made Obito and Madara regret every life choice. Red eyes glowing, guns blazing, chaos control, and a red-haired baddie. This shit is straight fire.
The machine hummed to life, and 8-year-old Naruto Uzumaki screamed. Metal clamps held his wrists to the chair. Restraints circled his ankles, his chest, his forehead. The underground chamber smelled like antiseptic and old blood, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead with the dead-eyed indifference of a world that had already decided what he was worth. A tool, a weapon, a blank slate for Root to write upon. Danzo Shimura stood behind reinforced glass, arms folded into his robes, watching the boy thrash against the bindings. Beside him, 3 Root operatives monitored banks of screens displaying brainwave patterns, chakra flow charts, and neural suppression metrics. Everything was proceeding according to protocol. The Jinchuriki had been collected from his apartment in the dead of night. Chloroform, a ceiling tag on his tenketsu points, and a body bag carried through tunnels that existed on 0 official maps. The third Hokage would learn of this in the morning. By then, it would be irrelevant. The boy's mind would already be erased. His personality, memories, and will would be replaced by obedience architecture that had been perfected across 40 years of Root conditioning. Increase the suppression field to 70%. Danzo ordered. The operative at the primary console complied. The machine's hum deepened. Naruto's screaming intensified. Raw, animal, the sound of a child whose world had become pure pain. His small body arched against the restraints hard enough to draw blood from his wrists where the metal bit into skin. Then the screaming stopped. Danzo leaned forward. The boy's body had gone completely still. Every monitor flatlined simultaneously. Brainwaves, chakra signature, heartbeat. A dead reading across every metric. The operatives exchanged glances. One reached for the emergency shutoff. Then, every screen in the facility turned red. The readings spiked beyond their maximum thresholds. The monitors cracked. The console sparked. One operative was thrown backward from his station as electricity arced through the controls and blew the circuitry apart in a shower of blue fire. Behind the glass, the boy opened his eyes. They were red. Crimson irises that glowed with an energy Danzo had never seen in 40 years of dealing with the most dangerous forces on the continent. This was something beyond chakra, beyond Biju influence, beyond anything cataloged in his extensive files. A golden luminescence pulsed beneath the boy's skin, racing through his veins like liquid fire, and the metal restraints began to glow cherry red where they touched him. The clamps melted. The chair warped. The boy rose from the apparatus with the slow, deliberate weight of something ancient waking from a long sleep, and his bare feet touched the cold floor with a sound that echoed through the entire facility like a judge's gavel. Naruto Uzumaki stood in the center of the chamber. Except the thing standing there was no longer just Naruto Uzumaki. Memories crashed through his consciousness like a tidal wave, a space station orbiting high above a blue planet. Laboratories filled with machines beyond anything this world had conceived. A man in a white coat with kind eyes and desperate hands. A girl with blonde hair and a smile that could make even the coldest creation believe in warmth. Maria. Her name hit him like a bullet to the chest. Maria Robotnik. Her laugh. Her hand pressed against the glass as the escape pod launched. The gunshot, the blood. Her body falling as the pod doors closed, and he was jettisoned toward a planet that would never deserve the sacrifice she made. He remembered Black Doom, the alien blood running through engineered veins. He remembered Gerald's madness and grief. He remembered the promise, protect the people of that world, because Maria believed they were worth protecting, even as they killed her for the crime of being kind. He remembered his name. He lifted his head. The red eyes blazed with 50 years of memory compressed into a single heartbeat. His voice came out low, steady, and carrying a weight that made every Root operative in the corridor behind the chamber door take an involuntary step backward. I am Shadow, Shadow the Hedgehog, a researcher's dream, an ultimate life form. The reinforced glass between him and Danzo cracked from the sound pressure alone. Danzo's single visible eye widened by a fraction, the most emotion the man had shown in decades. He raised his hand, engaged the secondary. The glass exploded inward. Every shard stopped midair, suspended in a field of golden energy that hummed with a frequency the walls themselves seemed to vibrate against. Naruto, Shadow, flicked his wrist, and the suspended shards reversed direction, embedding themselves into the concrete walls of the observation booth in a perfect ring around Danzo's silhouette. Root Anbu poured from the corridors. 6 of them, 8, 12. They moved in standard suppression formation, a triangle of approach vectors designed to overwhelm a single target through coordinated timing and overlapping attack zones. They were fast. They were trained from childhood to be emotionless, efficient killers. They were laughably slow. Naruto raised one hand. Golden light coalesced along his arm and then fired outward in a fan of brilliant energy lances. Chaos spears, each one the length of a javelin, each one moving at the speed of thought. The first 3 Anbu were pinned to the wall behind them before their feet completed a single step. 2 more were impaled through their weapons, the energy lances driving their tanto blades back into the concrete and holding them suspended like pinned insects. The remaining 7 scattered into evasive patterns, drawing weapons, forming seals for jutsu that would never complete. Naruto's feet left the ground. His sandals hummed, a high-pitched whine of energy that compressed beneath his soles and generated thrust like miniature jet turbines. He crossed the room in a blur that left after images burned into the retinas of everyone watching. His fist connected with the lead Anbu's mask and caved it inward along with the face beneath it. The body hit the far wall hard enough to crater the reinforced concrete. He moved through the remaining 6 like wind through paper. Every strike carried the full force of a body engineered to exceed physical limits that natural evolution could never produce. Bones broke, masks cracked, bodies hit walls, floors, and each other with the wet thud of meat meeting stone at terminal velocity. The entire engagement lasted 4 seconds. Naruto touched down on the ruined floor and turned toward Danzo. The old warhawk had freed his bandaged arm from beneath his robes. The concealing wraps fell away, revealing a column of Sharingan eyes embedded in transplanted flesh, stolen from the Uchiha clan during their massacre, preserved and grafted onto a body that had traded every scrap of humanity for power. Izanagi, the ability to rewrite reality itself through sacrificial illusion. Danzo activated one eye. The world shimmered. He appeared behind Naruto with a kunai already mid-thrust toward the base of the boy's skull. Naruto caught the kunai between 2 fingers without turning around. The blade stopped dead. The force of the thrust transferred through Naruto's hand and dissipated into nothing, absorbed by a body that had been designed to withstand forces 1,000 times greater than a single man's desperation. "You tried to erase me," Naruto said. His voice was still eerily calm for an 8-year-old's mouth. The timber was wrong, too old, too cold, carrying the weight of memories that spanned lifetimes and dimensions. "You tried to make me into a puppet." He turned. His hand shot forward and closed around Danzo's throat. The old man's feet left the ground. His remaining Sharingan eyes spun wildly, activating Izanagi after Izanagi, each one rewinding his death, each one closing forever as the cost was paid. But Naruto's grip never wavered. He simply held on through every reality warp, every desperate temporal loop, until the eyes ran out and Danzo hung in his grip with nothing left, except his own natural, terrified heartbeat. "These stolen eyes," Naruto said, looking at the now-dead Sharingan lining Danzo's arm with open contempt. "Trophies from a massacre you ordered. You built your strength from other people's corpses." He squeezed. Danzo choked. "I was built from scratch. Every cell in this body was designed to surpass everything your broken system has ever produced. You are a politician playing dress-up as a warrior, and I am the thing warriors have nightmares about." He turned toward the concrete wall behind the observation booth, shifted his grip, and then he threw Danzo with the full force of an arm that could punch through tank armor. But instead of letting the old man splatter, he engaged a burst of chaos control at the point of impact. Space folded. Danzo's body phased halfway into the concrete and then solidified there. His torso embedded in the wall from the waist up, his legs dangling free, his face pressed against stone with just enough room to breathe and scream. Danzo screamed. Naruto looked at him for a long moment. A corpse can't remember fear. So live. Remember what you felt tonight. And know that if your shadows ever reach for me again, I will erase this entire organization from existence. He looked up. 6 meters of concrete, earth, and building foundation between him and the sky. Trivial. He gathered the chaos energy in his core. Red gold light pooling in his chest until it burned like a star behind his ribs. And then he released it upward. The chaos blast tore through the ceiling, through the earth, through the foundation of whatever mundane building sat above this underground hell, and opened a perfect cylinder of destruction straight to the night sky. Debris rained outward. Dust billowed. Stars gleamed through the hole. Naruto's boot jets fired. He rose through the column of destruction like a missile launch in reverse. Smooth, vertical, unstoppable, and erupted into the night air above Konoha. The village spread below him in sleeping silence, unaware that something had just changed in the bedrock beneath their feet. Something fundamental, something irreversible. He hovered for a moment above the rooftops, the thermal wake of his own blast rippling his clothes and hair. He looked down at the village, the monument faces, the academy, the apartment where he had lived in lonely squalor for 8 years, while a beast sat in his gut and a village pretended he was invisible. He felt nothing for it. He turned east, his boots hummed, and then he was gone, a streak of gold and red against the stars, moving at speeds that would generate a sonic boom before he cleared the outer wall. By morning, the third Hokage stood in the ruins of the subterranean facility with a face carved from granite. 14 root operatives were in critical condition. The mind wipe apparatus was reduced to molten slag. And Danzo, still being extracted from the concrete wall by a medical team using precision earth jutsu, had nothing useful to say except demands that the boy be classified as an S-rank threat and hunted immediately. The Hokage denied the request. He stared at the hole in the ceiling, the perfect cauterized tunnel running straight to the sky, and felt something he had rarely felt in his decades of leadership. He felt old. The boy was gone. The Jinchuriki had vanished. And the force he had demonstrated bore zero resemblance to anything in Konoha's extensive files on tailed beast chakra. This was something else entirely, something new. Something that made the old professor turned Hokage wonder if perhaps the world was about to change in ways that had nothing to do with ninja villages and everything to do with something far, far older. The whispers started within days. Intelligence networks that operated in the shadows between villages picked up fragments. A child, red-eyed, moving at impossible speed along the eastern trade routes. A root facility destroyed from the inside. An energy signature that defied classification. The first entry in a file that would grow thicker every year. Unidentified asset, codename Red Eyes. Konoha buried the incident. Danzo raged in silence, his broken body healing, his pride permanently scarred. And somewhere in the vast wilderness between the great nations, an 8-year-old boy with the memories of an ultimate life form walked alone under stars that looked exactly like the ones he remembered seeing through the window of a space station a lifetime ago, with a girl named Maria standing beside him and believing the world below was beautiful. He walked, he trained, he remembered, and he grew. 4 years passed. The boy became something else entirely. At 12, Naruto Uzumaki stood 5'6" with a lean, hard build that carried zero excess on its frame. His blonde hair had darkened at the tips to black, a physical manifestation of the chaos energy that had been restructuring his body since the night of his awakening. He wore a black jacket with red trim, fingerless gloves reinforced at the knuckles, cargo pants with sealed pockets containing ammunition and explosive tags, and boots that looked standard issue but hummed with the jet thrust systems he had refined through years of trial and modification. Across his back, in a custom leather holster, sat a pair of submachine guns, compact matte black, fed by magazines loaded with rounds he manufactured himself from raw materials. The bullets were ordinary lead and copper until the moment he fed chaos energy into the firing mechanism. Then they became shaped explosive charges capable of punching through reinforced steel and detonating on the other side. Strapped above the guns, horizontal across his lower back, was the sealing scroll for the Dark Rider, his motorcycle. Black frame, red engine housing, a power plant that ran on chaos energy rather than fuel, giving it effectively unlimited range and a top speed that could outrun anything on wheels in the elemental nations. He had built it himself over the course of a year, scavenging parts from 3 different countries and machining custom components using chaos energy as both welding torch and precision tool. He operated under the name the Black Blur, a mercenary, a ghost, someone who appeared, completed the objective, whatever it was, and vanished before anyone could establish a solid description beyond fast, armed, and terrifying. His client list included minor lords seeking protection from bandits, merchants whose caravans crossed dangerous territory, and occasionally, when the pay was extraordinary or the target was personally offensive to him, assassination contracts against people the world was better off without. He took every contract through dead drops. He met clients through intermediaries. His face appeared in 0 bingo books because every intelligence agency that had attempted to photograph him found their cameras destroyed and their surveillance teams unconscious with 0 memory of the encounter. The file grew. Iwagakure's military intelligence division, the most aggressive information-gathering apparatus among the 5 great nations, had assembled a dossier on the Black Blur that ran to 40 pages of speculation, 7 pages of confirmed kills, and exactly 0 usable images. What they did have: energy signature readings from destroyed sites that matched nothing in any existing database, bullet casings that self-destructed after 30 minutes via a seal he inscribed on each one during manufacture, tire tracks from a vehicle that operated without conventional fuel, and a growing body count of missing nin, rogue samurai, and criminal organizations that had all made the mistake of being in his path. Awagakure's Tsuchikage Onoki had authorized a capture or kill operation 6 months ago. The operation had been designated Stone Hammer and assigned to a full combat platoon of 30 Earth-style specialists supported by heavy artillery golems, war-grade constructs standing 12 feet tall, armored in chakra-reinforced granite, piloted by Jonin-level operators from inside sealed cockpits. The platoon had been tracking energy signature residuals for weeks, following the faint traces of chaos energy that Naruto left behind whenever he engaged his motorcycle's power plant at full output. They had finally narrowed the trail to a mountain highway in the land of rivers, a long straight stretch of road cutting through a canyon with high cliffs on both sides. Perfect killbox geometry, elevation advantage, artillery coverage, overlapping fields of fire. They set the trap at midnight. By dawn, the roadblock was complete. 12 artillery golems positioned along the cliff faces, 18 ground-level operators hidden behind earthen barricades, and a wall of compressed stone across the road itself, 15 feet high and 4 feet thick. Standard Stone Village doctrine for engaging a high-value mobile target: deny the road, saturate the kill zone, overwhelm with mass. It began to rain. Naruto felt the trap from 3 miles out. His senses, enhanced far beyond human parameters by the same engineering that had once been intended to create the ultimate weapon against an alien invasion, picked up the concentrated chakra signatures ahead with the same ease a normal person might notice a bonfire in the distance. 30+ hostiles, heavy constructs, artillery positions on elevated terrain. He did the math in his head in the time it took to blink. 30 Earth users, 12 golems, restricted terrain, rain reducing visibility for them, while doing nothing to him. He smiled. It was a cold expression, the smile of something that had been built for exactly this kind of situation. The Dark Rider's engine growled beneath him, and he opened the throttle. The platoon commander, a Jonin named Kitsuchi, the Tsuchikage's own son, heard the motorcycle engine first, a deep, rumbling growl that echoed off the canyon walls and grew louder with every heartbeat. He raised his hand, signaling ready positions. Every golem pilot powered up. Every ground operator formed the first seal of their assigned jutsu. The trap was set. The prey was approaching. The sound grew louder, closer, faster than it should have been. Impossibly fast, actually, the Doppler shift suggesting a velocity that exceeded anything a conventional vehicle should achieve on a mountain road in the rain. Then the headlight appeared around the canyon bend. A single point of furious red light cutting through the rain-black air like a predator's eye. The motorcycle was moving at 200 kilometers per hour on a wet mountain road without the slightest deviation in its line. The rider was a shadow behind the light, visible only as a silhouette of speed and intent. "Fire!" Kitsuchi commanded. The first golem opened with its primary weapon, a compressed boulder the size of a wagon, accelerated by an internal catapult mechanism to 3 times the speed of a thrown kunai. It arcs through the rain toward the approaching headlight. Naruto leaned the Dark Rider 30 degrees to the left without braking. The boulder passed close enough to ruffle his hair and detonated against the road behind him, sending a shockwave of stone fragments outward that would have shredded an ordinary rider. The motorcycle's tires held the wet road through a combination of chakra-enhanced grip surfaces and the rider's perfect weight distribution. A second boulder fired. A third. The cliff-face golems launched in sequence, creating an overlapping pattern of destruction that would have required a vehicle to slow down, swerve, or stop. Naruto accelerated. His right hand left the handlebar and reached behind his back. The motion was smooth, practiced. A single draw that brought one of his submachine guns into his grip with the ease of breathing. He pointed the weapon at the nearest ground-level barricade without aiming through sights. He did something with his thumb, fed a pulse of golden energy into the magazine, and squeezed the trigger. The first burst of fire sounded wrong. The reports were too loud, too resonant, carrying a secondary detonation that made each gunshot sound like 2 explosions layered on top of each other. The rounds, small standard caliber bullets, hit the barricade and erupted. Each impact point generated an explosion equivalent to a high-grade explosive tag. The barricade disintegrated. The 3 operatives behind it were thrown backward in a spray of pulverized stone and superheated air. Naruto drifted the motorcycle into the turn, still firing. The gun swept along the left cliff face, putting rounds into the knee joints of the nearest artillery golem. Each bullet detonation blew chunks of granite free. The golem staggered. Its leg gave. 12 feet of war construct toppled from the cliff and crashed onto the road below in an avalanche of broken stone. Kitsuchi formed seals. Earth-style, rising stone spears. The road ahead of Naruto erupted into a forest of stone pillars, each one sharp enough to impale, each one rising at the speed of a striking snake. Naruto stood on the seat of the Dark Rider. His boots fired. He launched himself into the air above the kill zone, leaving the motorcycle to slide between 2 spears on its side with perfect momentum, the machine's chassis scraping the road surface in a shower of sparks before the gyroscopic stabilizers caught and righted it. Naruto hung in the air 15 meters above the battlefield, rain streaking past him, golden energy coursing along both arms. He drew the second gun, both weapons leveled at the formations below. "Anyone who gets in my way is my enemy." He said it without raising his voice. The words carried through the rain anyway, reaching every operative in the canyon with impossible clarity, as though the sound itself refused to be diminished. Then he stopped time. Chaos control activated. The world turned gray. Rain froze mid-fall. Millions of droplets suspended in the air like a field of tiny crystals. The golems locked in mid-swing. Every operative froze in whatever position they occupied at the instant of activation. Kitsuchi hung with one hand extended, mid-seal, his face locked in an expression that was shifting from confidence to doubt. Naruto descended through the frozen rain with the unhurried pace of someone walking through a garden. His boots touched the ground. He holstered both weapons. He had work to do, and bullets, even enhanced ones, were overkill for what he had in mind. He walked. He moved from golem to golem along the cliff faces, placing his palm against each one's core, the sealed cockpit where the Jonin pilot sat frozen, and inscribing a rapid-fire sequence of chaos energy directly into the construct's internal structure. Each mark was invisible, a tiny golden sigil that sat dormant until time resumed. He walked to each ground operative in sequence, 15 seconds of work at each one, relieving them of their weapons, shifting their positions to face the wrong direction, and placing a chaos spear suspended 2 inches from each one's throat. The golden lances hung in frozen air like dozens of gleaming swords held by invisible hands. He walked to Kitsuchi last. The Jonin's face was frozen between expressions, the transitional moment between confidence and something darker. Naruto studied him for a moment. This one was a commander. He would be the message. He left Kitsuchi untouched. Let the man watch what happened next. Naruto walked back to the center of the road. The Dark Rider lay where it had stopped, frozen in the moment of righting itself from its slide. He righted it manually, swung one leg over the seat, and settled into riding position. He snapped his fingers. Time resumed. The chaos was instantaneous. Every golem along the cliff face detonated from the inside out, their chakra cores overloaded by the chaos energy sigils, expanding outward in blooms of blue-white fire that turned each construct into a shower of burning stone fragments. Every ground operative found themselves facing the wrong direction with a golden spear touching their throat. And in the same instant they registered this, the spears pulsed once and released a concussive wave that knocked each one unconscious without killing them. Kitsuchi was left standing alone in the center of a destroyed formation. 12 golems burning, 18 operatives unconscious. The canyon road cratered and smoking, and the black blur, astride that impossible motorcycle with its growling engine, sitting motionless 30 meters ahead, looking at him through the rain. Naruto revved the engine once. The sound was the period at the end of a sentence. Then he rode forward, past the burning golems, past the unconscious bodies, past Kitsuchi, who stood paralyzed with his hands still extended in a half-formed seal he would never complete. The motorcycle passed close enough for the commander to feel the heat radiating from the engine housing, close enough to see the rider's red eyes glowing in the rain-washed shadows, and then it was gone. An engine growl fading into the distance as the rain resumed its steady fall on a canyon full of wreckage. Kitsuchi stood there for a long time. He lowered his hand. He looked at the destruction surrounding him. A full Stone Village combat platoon, disabled in under 10 seconds of real time by a single individual operating at a level that made their combined efforts look like children throwing rocks at a thunderstorm. He sent his report by Hawk Summon that same hour. The message was brief. Target exceeds S-rank classification. Stonehammer is a failure. Requesting immediate reassignment of all surviving personnel and formal reclassification of the Black Blur to threat level catastrophic. Do not engage again without Kage-level support. Onoki read the report in his office the following morning. He read it twice. Then he placed it in a locked drawer and did something he had only done 3 times in his long career. He chose to leave it alone. The file on the Black Blur was reclassified to the highest level of secrecy. The operation was buried, and the Elemental Nation's fastest-growing legend continued to ride its highways unchallenged. Orochimaru maintained 14 research facilities across the Elemental Nations at any given time. They rotated locations every 6 months, operated under civilian covers ranging from pharmaceutical labs to agricultural research stations, and were staffed by a combination of willing researchers, coerced prisoners forced into technical roles, and test subjects who had long since lost the capacity to object to anything. Naruto knew the locations of 9 of them. He had spent the better part of 3 months mapping Orochimaru's network using a combination of intercepted communications, interrogated couriers, and his own scouting runs at speeds that allowed him to cover the entire continent in a single night when necessary. His interest in Orochimaru was professional. The Snake Sanin possessed the most extensive collection of forbidden sealing research outside of Uzushiogakurei's sunken vaults, research into containment matrices, energy conversion seals, and dimensional anchoring techniques that Naruto wanted for his own purposes. The chaos energy running through his body was vast, but he understood its nature better than anyone alive. He knew his own system had limitations, limits imposed by the physical frame he inhabited, which was human rather than the purpose-built synthetic body Shadow had originally occupied. The sealing research could help him build stabilization frameworks to push those limits further without destroying his own body in the process. The first 3 facilities fell without incident. Naruto hit them at night, moving through the security teams the way a hot knife moves through butter, extracting research scrolls and data tablets before rigging the buildings with chaos energy charges that detonated 30 minutes after his departure. Clean entries, clean exits, maximum information extraction. The 4th facility was different. It was located in a mountain cave system in the land of rice paddies, close enough to Odogakure that it operated with a larger security complement than the peripheral bases. Naruto identified 17 combatants on the perimeter, 11 researchers inside, and an underground section that his scouting pass could identify, but whose contents his external sensors could only register as high chakra density and organic. Test subjects, prisoners. He went in at midnight. The perimeter guards fell in pairs. One chaos spear to pin the first against a rock face, a second to catch the partner before they could raise an alarm. He moved through the outer defense ring in 40 seconds, leaving 17 unconscious bodies and 0 alerts triggered. The cave entrance accepted him without resistance. The security seals on the door were sophisticated for civilian standards and laughable for his. A pulse of chaos energy scrambled the seal matrix, and the door swung open on silent hinges. The interior was everything he expected from Orochimaru. Sterile corridors lit by artificial light, the smell of chemicals and something organic underneath, the smell of biological experimentation pursued without ethical constraints. Lab equipment lined the walls in ordered rows. Computer terminals displayed data in specialized formats that meant nothing to most people, but that Naruto's enhanced mind processed and categorized in real time as he moved. He cleared the research floor in 3 minutes. 11 researchers, most of them willing participants in atrocity, were knocked unconscious and left zip-tied in the primary lab. Data scrolls went into sealed pouches on his belt. Hard drives were cracked open and their contents transferred to his own portable storage using a device he had built from scavenged tech. Everything Orochimaru knew about forbidden sealing, everything stored in this particular facility, was now his. Then he descended. The underground section was accessed through a reinforced elevator shaft, a metal box that dropped 40 meters into the mountain's roots. Naruto burned through the elevator door with a sustained chaos spear and dropped the shaft in freefall, his boots firing at the last moment to decelerate and land soft on the elevator's roof below. He tore through the roof panel. The sublevel was a prison. 8 cells arranged in a circle around a central observation platform. 7 of the cells were empty, their former occupants either moved to other facilities or dead from whatever experiments had been run on them. The 8th cell had a resident. She was crouched in the corner of a reinforced cage, bars made from chakra-conductive metal, designed to absorb and redirect any jutsu used against them from the inside. Her red hair was tangled and dirty, falling across a face that was too thin and carried bruises in 3 stages of healing. She was wearing a gray prison jumpsuit 2 sizes too large, cinched at the waist with a torn strip of fabric. She looked about his age, 12, maybe 13, and she was staring at him with eyes that held 0 fear and a whole lot of fury. "Who the hell are you?" she thought. The words came out rough and raw, a voice that had been screaming and hadn't gotten enough water afterward. Another one of his freaks? Another goddamn experiment come to poke at me? I'll bite your fingers off if you reach through those bars, I swear to every... "I'm here to steal research," Naruto said. His voice was flat, efficient, and utterly uninterested in her performance of aggression. "You're irrelevant to my objective." She blinked. The fury didn't dim, but confusion entered the mix. "Then why the hell are you down here?" "The elevator shaft leads here." "I followed it." "Great, wonderful. Then turn around and follow it back up, asshole. I don't need some edgy prick staring at me in my cell like I'm a zoo animal." He should have left. His objective was complete. The data was secured. The facility would be destroyed and he checked his internal clock. 22 minutes when the charges he had placed upstairs detonated. He should extract, regroup, and move to the next target. He looked at her. The memory hit him with the force of a physical blow. It always came this way. Unexpected, overwhelming, and timed to maximum emotional devastation. Maria's face, overlaid on this girl's. The red hair was wrong. Maria's had been blonde, but the eyes were right, fierce, alive, trapped behind glass while someone else decided whether she lived or died. Maria behind the observation window. Maria pressing her palm to the glass. Maria saying his name, the real one, the one she had given him when he was still learning what it meant to exist. Maria falling. Naruto's hand moved before his conscious mind authorized it. He placed his palm flat against the cell door. Chaos energy flowed into the metal, golden light spreading through the chakra-conductive bars like veins of fire. The conductive network, designed to absorb and redirect energy back inward, attempted to process the chaos input and immediately overloaded. The bars glowed white-hot for a fraction of a second, and then the entire door blew outward off its hinges, missing the girl by 3 feet and embedding itself in the opposite wall. She scrambled to her feet, back pressed against the cell wall, eyes wide. What the hell? Naruto stood in the open doorway. The golden energy faded from his hand. The smoke from the melted hinges curled around him. I will fulfill her wish. I will protect you. The girl stared at him like he had spoken in a foreign language, which in a sense he had. Those words belonged to a different world, a different time, a different promise made to a different girl. But the intent behind them was the same, and the decision had already been made. You're insane, she said. Her voice was smaller now, still angry, still hard, but carrying an undercurrent of something that might have been desperate hope trying to disguise itself as contempt. You're absolutely insane. I don't even know your name. Naruto, he said. Then, after a beat, most people call me the Black Blur. That's a stupid name. I didn't ask for your opinion. Are you coming or are you staying? He turned and walked toward the elevator shaft. The building detonates in 20 minutes. She followed, cursing under her breath the entire way, calling him every foul name in a vocabulary that would make a sailor blush, but following. Up the elevator shaft, he carried her under one arm while his boots fired, and she screamed obscenities into his ear about warning her before he did things. Through the cleared facility, past the unconscious researchers, and out into the night air. They were 200 meters clear when the charges went off. The mountain face caved inward. The facility collapsed into its own footprint. Fire and dust bloomed from the cave entrance like dragon's breath. The girl stood beside him in the tree line, watching the destruction with wide eyes. Then she looked at him, looked back at the fire, looked at him again. Tayuya, she said. He looked at her. My name, dumbass. You gave me yours. It's Tayuya. He nodded once. Then he unsealed the Dark Rider from the scroll on his back. The motorcycle materialized in a cloud of displaced air, all black frame and red accents and an engine that hummed with barely contained power. Tayuya stared at the bike. What the hell is that? Transportation. Get on. I'm not getting on that death machine. The facility staff will trigger a distress signal when they wake up. Reinforcements arrive in approximately 12 minutes from Otogakure. We need to be 50 kilometers away by then. Get on. She got on. She gripped his jacket with white-knuckled hands and called him 17 different profanities as he opened the throttle, and the Dark Rider launched down the mountain road at speeds that made the trees blur into a single streak of black. And that was how it began. Tayuya, he learned over the following weeks, was a former Sound Village operative, one of Orochimaru's experiments. Recruited as a child from a destroyed village and given a curse seal that enhanced her existing musical genjutsu abilities at the cost of agonizing physical transformation. She had been imprisoned in that facility after attempting to defect, after deciding that being Orochimaru's weapon was worse than whatever punishment defection would bring. The punishment, apparently, had been 2 months in a sub-level cell, while Orochimaru's researchers studied how her curse seal interacted with her natural chakra under stress conditions. She was loud. She was foul-mouthed. She was genuinely, profoundly angry at the world in a way that had solidified into her entire personality. And she was the first person since Maria who spoke to Naruto like he was a human being rather than a weapon, a monster, or a myth. You eat like a goddamn animal. She told him on their third night camped in a forest clearing. She was watching him consume a ration bar with the efficient speed of someone who viewed eating as a necessary interruption to forward momentum. Slow down. Food isn't going anywhere. He ate at the same speed and said nothing. And another thing, you haven't slept in 2 days. Are you trying to die? Even you have to sleep eventually. I require 4 hours of rest per 72-hour cycle, he said. My physiology is different. Your physiology is bullshit, she muttered and kicked a rock into the campfire. He almost smiled. Almost. What surprised him, what genuinely caught him off guard, was how quickly she adapted to his operational tempo. Tayuya was a combat-trained kunoichi with skills that had been honed under one of the most dangerous trainers alive. Her flute-based genjutsu could control the nervous systems of multiple targets simultaneously. Her summoned doki, massive, bandaged creatures channeled through her music, hit with the force of a demolition team. And her tactical intelligence, hidden behind the profanity and the rage, was sharp enough to impress him. He made his offer on the 5th night. "I'm taking down every Orochimaru facility I can locate," he said, staring into the fire. "His research network contains information I need. The raids will be dangerous, frequent, and will eventually draw his personal attention." Tayuya was sharpening a kunai she had stolen from the last facility's armory. She didn't look up. "And you know his operations, his layout preferences, his personnel rotation schedules. Your knowledge has tactical value. So you want me as a guide. I want you as a partner." She did look up at that. Her eyes were sharp, searching his face for the catch. Everyone in her life had wanted something from her. Orochimaru wanted a weapon, the Sound Four had wanted a teammate they could exploit, and every other authority figure had wanted obedience. Nobody had ever offered partnership. "Partners split everything even," she said. "Agreed." "Partners don't abandon each other when things go sideways." "I don't abandon people," Naruto said. The words carried an edge, the weight of a memory that involved a gunshot and a girl's body falling, and a promise screamed through the closing doors of an escape pod. Tayuya studied him for a long moment. Then she went back to sharpening her kunai. "Fine, but I'm picking the music for the road. That bike needs a radio." The next 3 months were a symphony of destruction. They hit Orochimaru's network in systematic fashion. Tayuya's insider knowledge providing the layout and security protocols, Naruto's overwhelming force providing the execution. Facility 5 fell in 20 minutes. Facility 6, a larger compound with 2 full squads of sound shinobi as guards, took 45 minutes and ended with Tayuya standing on the roof playing her flute while her doki ripped through the last defenders below, and Naruto extracted data from the primary server room. Facility 7 was the first time they had to fight together in a real engagement. Orochimaru had anticipated the pattern by then and stationed a team of specialized hunters at the next predicted target, 4 Jonin-level operatives from the newly reformed Sound Four, Tayuya's replacements, which infuriated her on a personal level that transcended strategy. The lead operative was a massive man named Jirobo Mark II, a re-engineered version of the original, faster and meaner, and loaded with a second stage curse seal that had been refined beyond the original model. He hit like a siege engine and could absorb chakra on contact. He reached for Naruto during the engagement. His massive hand closed around Naruto's forearm. The chakra absorption technique activated and immediately failed. Chaos energy was something beyond chakra. It existed outside the system entirely. The absorption technique hit it and recoiled like a tongue touching a live wire. Jirobo II screamed and released his grip, his arm blackened from elbow to fingertips. Naruto put a chaos-enhanced boot into the man's chest and sent him through 3 walls. Behind him, Tayuya was engaged with 2 of the remaining 3, her flute spinning a web of sound that turned their own nervous systems against them, their limbs jerking and spasming as her genjutsu severed the connection between intent and action. Her doki materialized from the summoning seal and crushed the 3rd operative against the ceiling with a single backhand swing. They were efficient together. Her abilities covered the angles his speed couldn't address simultaneously. Crowd control, area denial, psychological warfare through sound manipulation. His overwhelming force handled everything she funneled into his path. It was a partnership built on complementary destruction, and it worked beautifully. Orochimaru noticed. Facility 9. 2 weeks after 7. This one was bait, and they both knew it. The base sat too openly in the landscape. The security was too light. The approach angles were too inviting. Everything about it screamed trap to anyone with experience in the field. "It's a setup," Tayuya said, lying on a ridge overlooking the compound, binoculars pressed to her eyes. "He wants us to hit this one." "I know." Naruto crouched beside her, scanning the perimeter with senses that reached further than any optical device. "So we skip it." "We don't." He stood. Whatever he's prepared for me is something I want to test myself against, and the data inside might be the last batch I need. Tayuya lowered the binoculars and stared at him. You're using yourself as bait for a counter trap. I'm walking into his best effort and showing him it's insufficient. That's the same thing said with more ego. He was already moving down the ridge. She followed, cursing. The trap sprung the moment they entered the primary lab. The walls sealed, reinforced barriers dropping from ceiling to floor, turning the room into a sealed box. Gas vents opened. Paralysis compound flooded the enclosed space, a chemical mixture designed to shut down the nervous system in 3 breaths. Naruto grabbed Tayuya, pulled her against his chest, and triggered a sphere of chaos energy around them both, a perfect barrier of golden light that held the gas at bay and provided them a bubble of clean air. Tayuya's face pressed into his jacket. She was close enough to hear his heartbeat, which hadn't changed rate by a single beat. Chaos Blast would destroy this room and everything in it, he said, including whatever data we came for. So figure something else out, genius. Her voice was muffled against his chest. He looked at the ceiling. The ventilation system. The gas was being pumped from somewhere. He raised one hand above the barrier sphere and fired a single chaos spear, a pinpoint lance that punched through the ceiling, through the ventilation ductwork above, and presumably through whatever gas reservoir was feeding the system. A muffled detonation above. The gas flow stopped. The existing gas hung in the sealed room. Naruto extended the barrier sphere's radius until it pushed the gas toward the sealed walls, where it compressed and condensed against the stone. Then he walked, carrying Tayuya inside the sphere, to the nearest sealed barrier wall and placed his free hand against it, chaos energy. The barrier was reinforced steel. It lasted approximately 4 seconds under sustained energy application before turning molten and running down the wall like candle wax. They stepped through into the corridor beyond. The sphere dissolved. Tayuya stepped back, smoothed her hair with forced casualness, and said absolutely nothing about the fact that she had just spent 2 minutes pressed against his chest and could still feel his heartbeat in her ears. The rest of the facility fell in standard fashion. Guards emerged. Guards fell. Data was extracted. Tayuya found a secondary objective. A room full of cursed seal research that she destroyed with extreme prejudice, smashing hard drives and burning scrolls with a lighter she produced from somewhere in a grin that was all teeth. They left as the building collapsed behind them. The Dark Rider waited where they'd left it. He'll come personally next time, Tayuya said as she climbed onto the back of the motorcycle. After 9 facilities, he'll stop sending proxies. Good, Naruto said and gunned the engine. The word spread through channels that existed below the surface of the legitimate shinobi world. The network of informants, mercenaries, rogues, and intelligence brokers who operated in the gray spaces between villages. The Black Blur had a partner now. A red-haired kunoichi with a mouth like a bandsaw and genjutsu capabilities that made hardened jonin weep. Together, they were dismantling Orochimaru's operations piece by piece with a systematic aggression that suggested either extraordinary confidence or suicidal intent. The bingo books updated. 2 new entries, cross-referenced. The bounties on both rose exponentially. And in Konoha, a young man with eyes like burning coal heard the rumors and felt something ignite in his chest. Sasuke Uchiha had left Konoha 4 months ago. The reasons were the same ones that had always driven him. Revenge, power sufficient to take both. The village had been a cage wrapped in the pretense of home, and everything it offered, teamwork, friendship, the slow accumulation of strength through approved channels, was a sedative designed to make him accept his place in a system that had failed his clan so completely that the only survivor was the man who murdered them. He had sought Orochimaru initially. The Sanin's promise of power had been compelling. The Curse Seal's second stage alone represented more raw combat enhancement than 2 years of standard training could provide. But Orochimaru's interest in Sasuke's body as a vessel had become apparent quickly. And Sasuke was nobody's vessel. He left Orochimaru's care after 3 months, taking the training, the Curse Seal enhancement, and his own considerable talents, and struck out alone into the elemental nations with one goal: find Itachi and kill him. But Itachi proved impossible to locate. Akatsuki's security was phenomenal. Every lead dead-ended. Every trail went cold. And in the silence between failed investigations, Sasuke heard the rumors about the Black Blur. At first, it was professional curiosity. A rogue operative with unknown capabilities destroying one of the Sanin's networks? Relevant, tactically interesting, but distant. Then the rumors gained specificity. The Black Blur used red eyes, eyes that glowed with energy, eyes that had been mistaken for Sharingan by panicked survivors. The Black Blur used speed that exceeded anything human. The Black Blur had once been identified as a blonde-haired youth from the land of fire, Naruto Uzumaki. Sasuke's jaw tightened the first time the name surfaced in connection with the legend. Naruto Uzumaki, the dead last from the academy, the idiot, the nobody, the orphan everyone ignored, the one person Sasuke had never considered a rival because rivalry required a minimum threshold of relevance, and Naruto had fallen below it in every measurable category, except now. The reports suggested S-rank capability. The reports suggested speed beyond anything the Curse Seal provided. The reports suggested destructive output comparable to tailed beast attacks. Naruto Uzumaki was being called a catastrophic threat by Iwagakure's military intelligence, and Sasuke was still chasing his brother through empty safe houses. The jealousy was poisonous. It ate at him from the inside, acid dissolving the certainty that had always been his foundation. He was the elite. He was the Uchiha. He was born with the strongest dojutsu in the world, and trained by a Sanin and driven by the purest possible motivation. The idea that Naruto, had surpassed him while he was still fumbling in Itachi's wake was unacceptable. He tracked the Black Blur for 6 weeks, used every intelligence-gathering technique Orochimaru had taught him, pulled favors from contacts he'd established during his time in the Sound, followed energy signature residuals the same way the stone had done before getting demolished. He found him on a Tuesday, a ruined city in the land of hot water, destroyed during the Second Shinobi War, never rebuilt, now an empty grid of broken buildings and cracked roads slowly being consumed by vegetation. The kind of place that existed outside maps and outside jurisdiction, a place where someone could fight at full power without concern for collateral damage to anyone who mattered. Sasuke stood on a collapsed wall overlooking the main avenue. The avenue was wide, 60 meters across, once a market district, now an empty expanse of broken stone and dead lampposts, perfect for a confrontation. He waited. The Dark Rider arrived at sunset. The engine's growl preceded it by 30 seconds, a sound that echoed off the ruined buildings and reverberated through the empty streets like a living thing. Then the motorcycle appeared at the far end of the avenue. It rolled forward at walking speed, deliberate, unhurried. The rider knew someone was waiting. Of course he knew. Naruto stopped the motorcycle 50 meters away. He swung one leg over the frame and stood beside it, hands in his jacket pockets, red eyes gleaming in the fading light. His entire posture was wrong for a confrontation. Too relaxed, too unbothered, like he was waiting for a bus rather than facing an opponent who had crossed 6 countries to find him. Sasuke dropped from the wall and landed in the avenue. His curse seal hummed beneath his skin, ready, eager. His Sharingan spun to life, 3 tomoe in each eye, fully mature, hungry. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke said. His voice was steady but tight. Controlled rage pressed against every syllable. The dead last, the nobody, and now they call you a catastrophic threat. Naruto looked at him with the expression of someone regarding an interruption. Sasuke, I've heard what you've done. The facilities, the platoon in the land of rivers. They're calling you a force of nature. Sasuke's hands clenched at his sides. The curse seal's marks began spreading across his skin. Black flame patterns crawling from the seal on his neck, racing down his arms, up his face. His chakra doubled. The air around him distorted. You're just a freak, Naruto. I am an elite, he charged. The curse seal's second stage activated mid-stride, his body warping, growing, the webbed wings erupting from his back, his skin turning gray, his eyes becoming slitted and monstrous. Chidori formed in his palm, 1,000 birds screaming in a sphere of lightning that crackled and burned the air around his hand. His speed hit maximum, Sharingan guided, curse seal enhanced high pushed to the absolute ceiling of what his enhanced body could generate. He covered 50 meters in the space between heartbeats. a speed that would have blurred past Jonin-level perception. A strike aimed at center mass with enough power to punch through steel plate. Naruto crossed his arms and rose 2 inches off the ground. His boots hummed. He hovered with the stillness of something that existed outside the rules of gravity, outside the rules that governed every other combatant on this planet. He looked at Sasuke's approaching charge the way a man looks at a child throwing a tantrum. Faker? I think you're the fake hedgehog around here. You're comparing yourself to me? Ha! You're not even good enough to be my fake. The words hung in the air between them for the fraction of a second remaining before impact. Then Sasuke's Chidori arrived and connected with empty space. Naruto was behind him. Chaos control, a teleportation so clean, so instant, that the Sharingan registered 0 frames of transition. He was simply there, and then he was elsewhere. The kick was a spinning roundhouse delivered at the apex of the turn. Naruto's boot connected with Sasuke's ribcage on the right side, the enhanced side, the side protected by the cursed seal's armor-like skin transformation. The boot carried the full weight of a body designed to exceed physical limits, a body that had punched through military-grade golems, that had shattered reinforced concrete, that had split the air itself with the force of its strikes. Sasuke's ribs broke. Multiple fractures. The crack was audible even through the cursed seal's enhanced durability. His body left the ground. The trajectory was horizontal and fast, carrying him 30 meters before he hit the rubble of a collapsed building and cratered it. Stone exploded outward. Dust bloomed. Silence for 3 seconds. Then Sasuke pulled himself from the rubble. Blood ran from his mouth. His ribs screamed with every breath. But he was an Uchiha. He was hatred incarnate. He had endured worse in training with Orochimaru, or so he told himself as his body tried to convince him otherwise. His Mangekyo Sharingan activated. The pattern spun into existence. The design he had unlocked through suffering and fury, the eyes that represented the pinnacle of the Uchiha bloodline. The left eye's ability engaged, Amaterasu. Black flames erupted from his eye and surged toward Naruto in a wave, the inextinguishable fire of the sun goddess, the flames that burned until they consumed their target entirely, the technique that represented the ultimate offense of the Sharingan bloodline. A wall of black fire that devoured air and stone and everything in its path. Naruto watched it come. He raised one hand, red energy condensed in his palm. A sphere of raw chaos power that compressed and intensified until it glowed like a miniature star held in a relaxed grip. The Amaterasu hit the sphere and was pulled into it, sucked inward like water flowing down a drain. The black flames twisted, compressed, spiraling into the red energy sphere, while their momentum was stripped away and their substance was consumed. The sphere shrunk. The flames vanished within it. Naruto closed his fist, and the sphere collapsed into nothing. Amaterasu consumed, processed, and discarded like waste heat from an engine. The most feared offensive technique in the Uchiha arsenal. Eliminated. One-handed, without effort. Naruto lowered his fist. He looked at Sasuke, who was staring at his own extinguished flames with an expression that was cycling through disbelief, denial, and the first trembling edges of despair. "I'm the coolest." He said it with absolute sincerity. Then he turned his back on Sasuke Uchiha and walked toward the Dark Rider. Sasuke lay in the rubble and watched him go. This was impossible. This was wrong. This was a nightmare born from the deepest well of his inadequacy in given flesh. Naruto. Naruto, the dead last, the failure, the boy who couldn't even perform a basic clone in the academy, had just dismissed him, had just defeated him in a single exchange, had just negated his strongest technique with one hand and turned away without concern. The Sharingan, his birthright, his pride, the culmination of everything the Uchiha name represented, had been irrelevant. The Chidori, taught to him by Kakashi, refined by Orochimaru, powered by the curse seal, had connected with nothing. Amaterasu, the technique he had sacrificed his eye's longevity to unlock, the flame that burned anything, had been swallowed like a candle in a hurricane. Sasuke's identity had been built on a single foundation. He was the strongest of his generation. He was the elite. He was the avenger, the chosen one, the last Uchiha whose destiny demanded he stand above all others. Every sacrifice he had made, every bond severed, every comfort abandoned, every piece of his humanity traded for power, had been justified by that singular certainty, and now that certainty was a lie. Naruto's back receded down the avenue. He walked to his motorcycle without urgency. The engine started with that impossible growl. The headlight, that single red eye, swept across the ruined street and then turned away as the bike moved toward the city's edge. Sasuke tried to rise. His ribs sent fire through his entire body. He fell back into the rubble. He lay there as the sun set and the ruined city darkened around him. He lay there as the sound of the motorcycle engine faded into nothing. He lay there as the full weight of what had just happened settled onto his chest like a stone slab. He was not the strongest. He had never been the strongest. And the person who occupied the summit he had spent his entire life climbing toward had looked at him like an insect and said 4 words that would echo in his skull for the rest of his life. "I'm the coolest." Sasuke's mangekyou spun. Blood ran from both eyes. His chest heaved with breaths that cost him pain each time. Something broke inside him that night. Something fundamental. Something that would either destroy him completely or rebuild him into something different. Something that understood the gap between human ambition and genuine, engineered supremacy. He lay in the rubble until dawn. The aftermath spread through the intelligence networks within days. Witnesses, there were always witnesses, even in ruins, reported the confrontation. The last Uchiha, Orochimaru's former apprentice, defeated in a single exchange by the Black Blur. The details varied in the retelling, but the core facts remained consistent. Sasuke struck first, Naruto responded once, and the fight ended. In Konoha, Kakashi Hatake read the intelligence brief and set it down very slowly on his desk. He stared at the wall for 15 minutes without moving. In Odogakure, Orochimaru received the report and laughed, a long, delighted sound that made his subordinates deeply uncomfortable. The Black Blur's power was beyond what his research had predicted, beyond the Sharingan's capability, beyond anything biological. He wanted it. He needed to understand it. And the girl, Tayuya, his former property, was the key. Capture the girl, and the boy would come. In Amegakure, behind the eternal veil of rain, a man with ringed purple eyes received a different report, an energy signature that had been flagged by Akatsuki's sensor network 3 months ago, growing stronger with every confirmed sighting, a force that operated outside standard classification parameters, a variable that could disrupt everything, the plan, the collection, the final objective. Pain made his decision. The variable would be eliminated. Naruto felt the shift coming. Something in the air had changed. The pattern of attacks, the quality of intelligence pursuit. For 3 months, his enemies had been Orochimaru's proxies and Stone Village remnants. Standard obstacles, manageable opposition. The new attention felt different, heavier. The surveillance signatures he detected at the edges of his awareness carried a weight that suggested resources beyond a single village or a single rogue actor. Someone with reach, someone with patience, someone who operated across national boundaries without regard for the political structures that normally constrained major operations. Akatsuki, he told Tayuya over dinner. A campfire in the woods, rabbit cooked on improvised skewers, her flute resting beside her as she ate. They've been watching for 2 weeks, he said. The sensors are distinctive, chakra-based remote viewing, bounced through multiple relay points. Professional work. Tayuya stopped chewing. Akatsuki, the energy signature matches their known operational pattern. So they're coming for you. She set her food down. Her jaw was tight. The people who hunt tailed beasts are coming for you. They're coming to assess me. The hunt happens after assessment. And you're just sitting here eating rabbit. I'm sitting here informing you because what comes next involves you. She looked at him. Her eyes were hard. If you tell me to run, I'm telling you to prepare. Whatever Akatsuki sends, it will be beyond what we've faced so far. I need you operating at full capacity. That means sleep. That means chakra reserves at maximum. That means your flute restrung and your summoning seals refreshed. Tayuya held his gaze for a long moment. Then she picked her food back up and resumed eating. If you die, I'm keeping the motorcycle. I'm not going to die. Sure, that's what everyone says before they die. He almost smiled again. Almost. 3 weeks later, they entered Omegakure. It was raining, because it was always raining in the hidden rain village. the eternal downpour that served as both natural barrier and surveillance system. Every drop of water touched by the village leader's chakra, every drop a sensor feeding information to the man who called himself a god. Naruto knew this. He'd studied Amagakure's defensive systems through intercepted intelligence and 2 separate reconnaissance passes at high altitude. He knew the rain was a sensor network. He knew Pain could track any foreign chakra entering his territory through the water itself. He knew entering the village was equivalent to walking into the palm of an enemy's hand. He rode in through the front gate anyway. The Dark Rider's engine echoed off the towering metal infrastructure of the Rain Village. Industrial spires, pipe networks, and rust-stained towers rising into the gray sky like the skeleton of a civilization that had forgotten what sunlight looked like. The streets were empty. The rain fell heavy and warm. Tayuya sat behind him, one hand gripping his jacket, the other resting on her flute case. She said nothing. She didn't need to. They both understood what this was. They had intercepted communications 3 days ago. Akatsuki intelligence referencing an ancient weapon beneath the Rain Village. Something called the Eclipse Cannon in fragmented historical texts dating back to before the formation of the hidden villages. A sealing weapon of catastrophic power capable of firing a concentrated beam that could permanently seal any chakra-based entity or energy source it struck. Pain intended to use it against them, against Naruto's chaos energy. To seal him permanently, Naruto's response to this information had been characteristically simple. Go there first. They made it 6 blocks into the village before the rain stopped falling in their immediate vicinity. The drops bent, curving around an invisible sphere that grew outward from a point 50 meters ahead. The air pressure shifted. The ground vibrated. A figure descended from the sky, the Deva Path. Pain's primary body, orange hair, ringed purple eyes, 6 black chakra receivers embedded in his face and ears. He hung in the air without visible support, his Akatsuki cloak rippling in a breeze that came from his own gravitational output. His expression was empty, unreadable. The face of someone who had transcended the emotional bandwidth of ordinary existence and now operated in a register that most people couldn't parse. 5 more figures appeared in the surrounding structures. The remaining paths of pain materializing in a formation designed to cover every angle of approach. The animal path on a high ledge. The human path in a doorway. The Ashura path on a rooftop. The Preta path blocking the avenue behind them. The Naraka path in shadows to the left. 6 against 2. Naruto killed the engine. He swung his leg over the Dark Rider and stood in the rain. The water ran down his face. His jacket pooled around his boots. He looked up at the hovering figure with red eyes that burned against the gray. The black blur, Pain's voice echoed from the Diva path. It carried from multiple bodies simultaneously, a choral quality that made it seem to come from everywhere and nowhere. Naruto Uzumaki, Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox, and something else, something beyond Bijou, something my eyes cannot fully define. You brought all 6, Naruto said. Smart. You represent unquantifiable disruption. Removing you from the equation requires maximum force applied without reservation. Then apply it. Pain raised his hand. Shinra Tensei. The almighty push hit the street like a wall of compressed atmosphere, visible as a shockwave ripple that turned the air itself into a weapon. Everything in its path was obliterated. The road surface shattered upward. Buildings on either side of the avenue were stripped of their facades. Pipe networks tore free from walls. Water vaporized. The force of it was staggering. A gravity manipulation so extreme that the city block ahead of the expanding wave simply ceased to maintain structural integrity. Naruto moved. His hand found Tayuya's collar. He threw her sideways, a controlled launch that sent her through the open window of a building to his left, clear of the blast path. She crashed through with a scream of profanity that he heard even over the roaring destruction. Then he turned to face the almighty push head on. His hands went to his wrists. The inhibitor rings, black bands around each wrist and ankle, heavy with containment seals he had designed himself to limit his maximum output in standard operations. He wore them because operating at full power constantly was unnecessary and attracted precisely the kind of attention he was now facing. He wore them because the gap between his suppressed state and his true state was a gap that made the difference between a hurricane and a gentle breeze. He set the rings on the wet ground. They clinked against the stone. Light. The world reacted. The sky above Amigakure, the eternal gray that had hung over the village for decades, turned red. The color bled into the clouds from a central point directly above Naruto, spreading outward like blood dropped in water. The rain evaporated. Every drop within 100-meter radius of him boiled away before touching his skin. The ground cracked, radiating lines of fracture spreading from his feet in every direction, splitting the avenue's stone surface like ice breaking on a frozen lake. A pillar of energy erupted from his body, red gold light shooting straight up into the bleeding sky, punching through the clouds and illuminating the gray rain for kilometers in every direction. The light was visible across the entire village. Citizens in their homes felt it, a vibration in their bones, a frequency in their teeth, a primal recognition that something beyond comprehension had just been unleashed in their midst. Naruto's eyes blazed. His body lifted off the ground, boot jets unnecessary, the chaos energy itself providing lift through sheer force of output. His hair whipped upward. His jacket streamed behind him. Golden red light traced every vein visible beneath his skin, turning him into a living circuit of power that made the Deva Path's gravitational output look like a child's toy. This is who I am. The almighty push reached him. The gravity wave, strong enough to flatten city blocks, strong enough to pulverize stone and steel and flesh, hit his body and split. The force flowed around him like river water around a boulder. It sheared away on either side, continuing its destructive path through the buildings beyond, but leaving him untouched at the center. The gravitational manipulation that could reshape a landscape simply could gain zero purchase against something that existed beyond the physical laws it manipulated. He flew forward. The Deva Path attempted a second Shinra Tensei. The cooldown had elapsed. The force gathered and fired. Naruto punched through it. His fist connected with the center of the expanding gravity wave and kept going, pushing through the invisible wall of force like it was water, parting it, destroying its cohesion at the point of contact. His arm extended. His fist reached the Deva Path. Contact. The punch carried everything. Every joule of energy that the inhibitor rings had been suppressing. Every ounce of physical force that a body engineered to be the ultimate weapon could generate. The impact point was the center of the Deva Path's chest, directly over the heart equivalent. The sonic boom hit the village like a physical event. Windows exploded in a 3-block radius. The sound barrier shattered visibly, a cone of compressed air expanding outward from the point of impact. And above them, the eternal rain clouds of Amigakure split open. The shockwave traveled upward through the atmosphere and tore a hole in the cloud cover directly above the city. A circle of blue sky, clear and open, appearing above the rain village for the first time in over a decade. Sunlight fell on Amigakure. The Deva Path hit the ground a quarter-mile away. Its chest was caved in. Its chakra receivers were shattered. It attempted to rise. Failed. The remaining 5 paths charged simultaneously. The Asura Path opened with a barrage of missile-like projectiles, its modified body splitting apart to reveal internal weapon systems that fired from 6 different ports simultaneously. The Preta Path rushed forward with its absorption barrier active, a bubble of chakra negation designed to swallow any energy-based attack. The Human Path circled for a flanking approach. The Animal Path summoned, a massive 3-headed dog that bounded forward with jaws wide. Naruto drew both guns. He fired while spinning. A continuous 360 rotation that sent chaos-enhanced rounds in every direction simultaneously. Each bullet tracked a target with the homing capability of a guided missile. The Ashura Path's projectiles were intercepted mid-flight and detonated harmlessly in the air between them. The summoned dog took 6 rounds to its heads, each one exploding on contact and severing a neck. The creature dispersed into smoke before it completed a single stride. The Preta Path reached him. Its absorption barrier made contact with his body. The barrier lasted approximately half a second. Chaos energy hit the absorption matrix and overwhelmed it. Too much, too fast, too fundamentally different from chakra to be processed by a system designed to handle chakra-based attacks. The Preta Path's barrier collapsed. Its arms, still extended in the absorption pose, were blown backward by the energy backlash. Naruto put a boot through its faceplate and kept moving. The human path appeared behind him, hand extended toward the back of his skull, the soul extraction technique ready to deploy on contact. Naruto's head turned slightly. His hand came up holding a golden energy lance, already formed, already aimed. The Chaos Spear fired point blank into the human path's chest and pinned it to the wall of a building 50 meters behind, with enough force to embed the body 3 feet into the concrete. The animal path went down to a sustained burst of gunfire, 15 rounds impacting in a tight pattern across its torso, each one detonating in sequence and tearing the body apart from the inside out. The Naraka path, the regenerator, the one that could restore the others, tried to retreat. Naruto appeared in front of it via chaos control. It had a single moment to register his presence before his hand closed around its head, and a pulse of chaos energy destroyed every chakra receiver in its body simultaneously, all 6 paths down. The fight had lasted 47 seconds from the Deva path's initial Shinra Tensei. Then the ground beneath the village shook. Pain, the real Pain Nagato, operating from his concealed location, had activated the Eclipse Cannon. The weapon rose from beneath the city's central tower, a massive structure breaking through the earth, shedding debris and dirt as it emerged. Ancient metal, ceiling arrays older than any current village glowing with blue-white light along its barrel. The Jido statue, the husk of the 10 tails, stood behind it, connected by chains of chakra that fed the weapon's power requirements. The statue's mouth was open, energy gathered between its teeth. The Eclipse Cannon's barrel oriented on Naruto, a targeting seal locked. The energy buildup was visible, a growing sphere of blue-white light at the barrel's tip that intensified with every second. The air around it ionized. The ground beneath it cracked from the sheer mass of power being channeled through its ancient systems. Tayuya emerged from the building where Naruto had thrown her. She saw the cannon. She saw the charging weapon. She saw Naruto hovering in the avenue below it, red eyes fixed on the growing beam. "Naruto!" she screamed. He looked at her, just for a moment. His expression carried something she had rarely seen on his face. Acknowledgement. Recognition. A look that said, "I see you, and you are the reason this matters." Then he turned back to the cannon. The Eclipse Cannon fired. The beam was blinding, a column of concentrated sealing energy that burned a line across the sky. White, blue, and howling with the sound of 1,000 wind techniques compressed into a single stream. It descended toward Naruto like the judgment of a forgotten age. Naruto pulled his arm back. Chaos energy concentrated. Everything he had, everything the inhibitor rings had been containing, everything the engineering of the ultimate life form could produce from a body pushed to absolute maximum. The energy compressed around his fist, then expanded outward to encompass his entire form. He became a silhouette of red gold light, a figure standing inside a sun. "If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have." He threw himself upward, toward the beam, toward the weapon, toward the annihilation that an ancient civilization had built to end things permanently. Chaos Blast! The detonation erased everything within the blast radius. Red light consumed the sky. A sphere of destructive energy expanded from Naruto's position at the speed of sound, engulfing the Eclipse Cannon beam, swallowing it, drowning it the way an ocean drowns a river. The beam vanished within the expanding sphere. The Gedo statue's outstretched arm, the one connected to the cannon by chains of chakra, was hit by the expanding blast and disintegrated. The chains shattered. The cannon itself buckled, warped, and then melted under the sustained energy exposure. The blast radius reached half the Rain Village. Towers dissolved. Streets vaporized. The infrastructure of a military-industrial city built across decades of paranoid engineering vanished in a flash of red light that was visible from 60 kilometers away. Then it stopped. The blast radius held at exactly 1.3 kilometers from ground zero, a perfect sphere of destruction. And at the center of it, Naruto hung in the air, arms spread, head tilted back, every vein in his body glowing with the afterimage of maximum output. And directly below him, untouched, unmarked, standing in a perfect circle of preserved ground no larger than 10 meters across, Tayuya stood with her arms wrapped around herself, staring up at him through the settling ash and the silence. He had shaped it. The Chaos Blast, a technique designed for indiscriminate, total destruction, had been shaped by willpower and precision to preserve exactly one spot, exactly one person. The silence was enormous. The rain had stopped. The mechanism that produced it was gone, destroyed along with Pain's control apparatus. For the first time in over a decade, the sky above Amegakure was open. The clouds were clearing. Stars began to appear in the darkness beyond the city's glow. Naruto descended slowly. His boots touched the ground inside the preserved circle. His body still pulsed with residual energy. Fading, dimming, the golden red glow retreating back beneath his skin as his output dropped from maximum to sustainable. He looked at Tayuya. She looked at him. The inhibitor rings materialized on his wrists and ankles, reforming from seals he had inscribed on his own bones, snapping back into place with an audible click that signaled the containment of something the world was better off having contained. She stared at him. Her eyes were wide. Her chest was heaving with breaths that came too fast. Her knuckles were white where her hands gripped her own arms. She said nothing. He said nothing. Some moments had already said everything. He turned. The Dark Rider, sealed in its scroll, which had been in his pocket the entire time, materialized at his summon. The motorcycle appeared in the ruined avenue, its black frame gleaming under the first starlight the Rain Village had seen in a decade. The engine started at his touch. The growl filled the silence. Naruto swung his leg over the seat. He looked at Tayuya. She dropped her arms. She walked to the bike. She climbed on behind him and wrapped her arms around his midsection. Tight, fierce, holding on with a grip that said everything her mouth wouldn't form words for. He gunned the engine. The Dark Rider roared forward through the ruins of Amegakure, past the molten remains of the Eclipse Cannon, past the crumbling towers, past the cleared sky and the falling ash. They hit the open road beyond the village's borders at full speed, the wind tearing at their clothes and hair as the lights of the destroyed city faded behind them. Far behind, in the deepest bunker beneath what remained of the Rain Village's infrastructure, Nagato sat in his mechanical walker with blood running from his nose and mouth. His Rinnegan eyes stared at nothing. The Deva path was destroyed. The weapon was destroyed. Half his village was destroyed. And the entity he had attempted to eliminate was riding away unscathed, untouchable, carrying a girl whose presence had apparently been enough to make an ultimate lifeform exercise precision in the middle of total destruction. Nagato had fought Hanzo. Nagato had killed a demigod. Nagato had declared himself Pain and reshaped an entire nation by will alone. He had just been made to feel mortal. He did something he had sworn he would never do again. He retreated. The road stretched ahead of them. Empty, dark, winding through hills that rose and fell beneath a sky full of stars that Amegakure citizens were seeing for the first time in their lives. The Dark Rider's engine held a steady, powerful note. The wind was cold and clean. Tayuya's grip on his jacket hadn't loosened. "You shaped it," she said. Her voice was barely audible over the engine. Barely audible, but he heard it perfectly. He didn't respond. "The blast. You shaped it around me. You." She stopped, pressed her face against his back. Her next words were muffled by leather and wind and something that might have been emotion. "You absolute idiot." He could have told her that the preservation radius was a standard technique, that shaping Chaos Blast around a designated safe zone was something he had practiced. He could have told her it was tactical, that losing a partner mid-operation was strategically suboptimal, that protecting assets was standard operating procedure. He said none of those things, because none of them were true. The truth was simpler, older, and carried the weight of a girl named Maria, pressing her hand against glass and asking him to protect the people below. The truth was that Tayuya was the reason the promise still mattered. The Dark Rider crested a hill. The wasteland of the Land of Rain spread behind them, the red glow of Amegakure's ruins still visible on the horizon, a wound in the night that would be visible for miles in every direction. Ahead of them, the road descended into forests, mountains, and a world that was learning, with increasing urgency, that something had arrived in it that defied everything the shinobi system had ever been built to contain. The ultimate life form, the red-eyed reincarnation of a weapon that had once existed beyond the stars. And beside him, holding on, the red-haired girl who had decided his war was worth fighting. They rode forward. The engine hummed, the stars turned overhead, and behind them, a new era began, written in fire, sealed in gold, and riding the growl of an engine that sounded like the world changing. The road ahead was long. There were other enemies, other wars, other gods who would look at the sky over Amegakure and think themselves above whatever had torn it open. They would learn otherwise. They always learned otherwise. But that was a story for another time. For now, there was the road, the engine, the wind, and two people who had both been discarded by systems that viewed them as tools, riding away from the wreckage of one such system toward whatever came next. Naruto Uzumaki rolled his shoulders. The inhibitor rings hummed against his wrists. Behind him, Tayuya's breathing steadied into something that felt like trust. He opened the throttle. The Dark Rider disappeared into the night, a sound fading into distance, a red taillight shrinking to a point and then gone. The world would catch up eventually. The world always caught up. But it would arrive behind him, staring at his back, trying to understand what it was chasing. It would never understand. It was never built to. He was Shadow. He was the ultimate life form. He was something the shinobi world had never imagined and would never contain. And the only person who needed to understand him was already holding on. The night swallowed them. The road carried them forward. The road unwound beneath the Dark Rider's wheels like a thread pulled from the fabric of the world itself. The engine held its rumble, steady, deep, a sound that belonged to nothing else on this continent. Behind them, the horizon still carried a red stain where Amegakure burned, and ahead the road dipped through forests that had never heard of hidden villages or gods who wore human faces. Tayuya's arms stayed locked around his midsection. Her grip had loosened from desperate to firm somewhere in the first 20 kilometers. But she held on with the kind of pressure that said she intended to keep holding on until she decided otherwise. Her face pressed between his shoulder blades. Her breathing had steadied. She was awake. He could tell from the tension in her forearms. But she had stopped talking 15 minutes ago, and the silence between them had settled into something that fit the shape of the road. The stars wheeled overhead. Real stars, visible through air that had been released from a decade of artificial rain. The whole sky above the land of rain was changing tonight. Weather patterns disrupted, cloud formations scattered by the absence of the chakra network that had sustained them. By morning, the entire eastern seaboard would experience clear skies for the first time in years. The meteorological ripple of what he had done would outlast the structural one. He rode 300 kilometers east of Amegakure's ruins, where the terrain shifted from rain country's industrial flatlands to the forested hills of the border region. He pulled the Dark Rider off the main road and into a clearing surrounded by old-growth trees. The engine died with a descending growl. Silence filled the gap it left, the kind of silence that existed only in deep wilderness, where human infrastructure had never reached. Tayuya dismounted without releasing his jacket until the last possible moment. She stood in the clearing and stretched, arms above her head, spine arching, joints popping with sounds that spoke to hours of rigid tension. Then she turned and looked at him. He stayed on the motorcycle. His red eyes caught the starlight and held it. "You going to sit on that thing all night?" she asked, assessing the situation. "The situation is that you punched a god in the chest and blew up half a city, and we've been riding for 3 hours and I need to piss. That's the situation." She stalked toward the tree line. "Build a fire or something. Even you have to eat." He watched her disappear into the trees. Then he dismounted and did what she asked, gathered wood, arranged it, and lit it with a thumbnail-sized chaos spear that ignited the tinder without scorching the ground beneath. The fire grew. He sat beside it cross-legged and let his senses extend outward in a sphere that covered 6 kilometers in every direction. The world was already moving. He could feel it, the distant vibrations of communication networks activating, hawk summons launched from a dozen locations, the particular tremor of intelligence apparatus spinning up across multiple countries simultaneously. What he had done in Amegakure had torn a hole in the continent's understanding of itself, and the response was beginning. By morning, the reports would reach every major village. By noon, The bingo books would update. By nightfall, decisions would be made in rooms he would never enter by people he intended to bury. Tayuya returned from the trees and dropped beside the fire. She pulled her flute from its case, examined the reed, ran her fingers along the instrument's length with the familiar ease of someone who had held the same object every day of their conscious life. She played a low, wandering melody with a rhythm that matched the fire's flicker. The sound was stripped of genjutsu intent, pure music. Something she did for herself when the world got too loud. He listened. After a while, she stopped and said, without looking at him, "The thing you did with the blast." She turned the flute in her hands. "You shaped it around me." He said nothing. "That means you were thinking about me. In the middle of all that, you were thinking about where I was standing, and you bent a nuclear explosion around me like wrapping paper." She looked at the fire. "That's insane." "It was necessary." "You keep saying things like that. Necessary, irrelevant, assessing the situation. You talk like a mission briefing with legs." She put the flute down. "But you shaped it. You chose to shape it, and that means something, and you know it does." He looked at her across the fire. The orange light made her red hair look like it was burning. Her eyes, brown, fierce, alive in a way that made the firelight seem dim by comparison, held his with the particular stubbornness of someone who refused to let him retreat into monosyllables. Maria's face flickered in his memory. The overlay was less direct now than it had been that first night in the cell. Tayuya had become her own shape in his mind, distinct, irreplaceable, carrying her own weight rather than borrowing it from a ghost. She was alive in a way Maria never got to be. Loud where Maria had been gentle, hard where Maria had been soft, present in a way that demanded response rather than remembrance. "It means something," he said. The admission cost him nothing to give because it was true. He had shaped the blast for her. He would do it again. Tayuya looked at him for a long time. Something shifted in her expression, the hardness remaining but a warmth beneath it surfacing like groundwater through stone. Then she picked up her flute again and resumed playing. A different melody, something that sounded, if you listened with the right ears, like a thank you that would never be spoken aloud. They slept. He took the 4 hours his body required, then sat watch while she curled beside the dying fire with her flute case under her head as a pillow. The stars turned. The world hummed with distant activity. Hawks flying, runners dispatched, the great machinery of response grinding into motion. He let it grind. Dawn came gray and golden. They ate ration bars. She complained about the flavor. He ignored the complaint. They mounted the dark rider and pulled back onto the eastern road as the sun crested the hills and threw long shadows across the landscape. 400 kilometers south, in a village built behind stone walls and carved faces, the news arrived. Kakashi Hatake received the intelligence brief at 6 in the morning. He read it standing at his desk in the Jonin Command Center, a room filled with maps, communication terminals, and the particular atmosphere of people who processed bad news professionally. The brief was 3 pages. He read each one twice, a megakure. Half the city reduced to molten rubble. The eternal rain ceased. Energy signature at the epicenter matching the black blur's established profile at over 300 times the previously recorded maximum output. 6 confirmed bodies matching the physical descriptions of Pain's 6 paths, all destroyed simultaneously. The Eclipse Cannon, previously classified as mythological, existence confirmed and destruction confirmed within the same intelligence cycle. A blast radius of 1.3 kilometers with a preservation zone at its center, 10 meters in diameter. Kakashi set the brief down. He looked at the wall. He thought about an 8-year-old boy eating ramen alone at Ichiraku's. A boy nobody had trained, nobody had nurtured, nobody had bothered to understand. A boy who had vanished from a root facility 4 years ago and been written off as a tragic loss by the civilian council and a potential asset by the military one. He thought about what Naruto had become without anyone's help, without the village, without a team, without any of the structures that were supposed to produce capable shinobi through approved developmental paths. The boy had built himself from nothing into something that made the entire shinobi system look like a child's game played with wooden swords. Kakashi closed his one visible eye. He breathed. Then he opened it and walked to the Hokage's office because the old man needed to see this before the council did. Hiruzen Sarutobi read the brief with the stone expression of a man who had seen every kind of catastrophe the world could produce and had long since exhausted his supply of surprise. But his pipe went unlit in his hand. The tobacco sat cold. And when he finished reading, he set the brief on his desk and looked at Kakashi with eyes that carried the full weight of his years. "He did this alone," Hiruzen said. The reports indicate a partner, the former sound operative Tayuya, but the primary engagement was solo. 6 paths of pain, a mythological weapon, and half a city. Hiruzen's jaw tightened. This is the boy we let slip through our fingers. The boy Danzo tried to erase. Yes, silence filled the Hokage's office. Hiruzen looked at the window, at the village spread below, at the monument faces, at the academy where Naruto had once sat in a classroom learning basic chakra theory, while something immeasurably more powerful lay dormant inside him, waiting for the worst possible catalyst to bring it screaming into existence. "He is beyond us," Hiruzen said. The words carried acceptance rather than despair, a simple acknowledgement of fact. Whatever he has become, we have zero capacity to influence it. The only question remaining is whether he views us as enemies. Kakashi thought about the ruined city where Sasuke had fought Naruto, where the last Uchiha had attacked and been dismissed in a single exchange. Naruto had chosen to let Sasuke live. That was data. "He views us as irrelevant," Kakashi said, "which may be the best outcome we can hope for." Hiruzen relit his pipe. The smoke curled toward the ceiling. "And Danzo?" Kakashi said nothing. They both knew. The old Warhawk had been planning, building. The intelligence from Root's movements over the past year suggested something coordinated and targeted. If Danzo moved against Naruto now after this, the result would be annihilation on a scale that made Amegakure look like a campfire. "I'll handle Danzo," Hiruzen said. He would try. He would fail. Danzo's ego had long since outgrown any capacity for the kind of rational self-preservation that might save his life. Far to the east, in a cave system beneath a mountain that existed on 0 official maps, a figure in a spiral mask watched the intelligence feed from 7 different sources simultaneously. Obito Uchiha, wearing the identity of Madara Uchiha like a costume that had grown into his skin, processed the data with the particular focus of an architect watching a demolition crew approach his building. The Black Blur, Naruto Uzumaki, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, though that classification seemed increasingly inadequate given what the boy had demonstrated in Amegakure. The Biju extraction remained the primary objective. The Nine-Tails was essential to the plan. Without it, the Geto statue remained incomplete, the Ten-Tails revival remained impossible, and the infinite Tsukuyomi remained a theory. But the energy signature from Amegakure suggested something that complicated extraction beyond any previously modeled scenario. The Nine-Tails was chakra, immense chakra, ancient chakra, but chakra within a system that could be sealed, extracted, and redirected. What Naruto had demonstrated went beyond that system entirely, an energy that defied the sealing matrices Akatsuki had been refining for years. An output that suggested the Jinchuriki label was a fraction of the boy's actual identity. Obito made his decision. The remaining field operatives would be deployed against the target. A staggered sequence of engagements designed to gather data on the energy's limitations, its interaction with Sharingan-level perception, its vulnerability to specific counterattack modalities. Each engagement would sacrifice an operative but yield information. Information that would allow the final confrontation to proceed with maximum advantage. He activated the communication seals embedded in the rings worn by every surviving Akatsuki member. The message was simple. The Black Blur is your primary target. Engage when encountered. Report findings. Accept casualties. In the land of water, Kisame Hoshigaki felt his ring pulse and grinned, the expression of a shark that had just been told the ocean contained something worth biting. In the border region between the land of earth and the land of wind, Deidara and Sasori received the same pulse and exchanged a glance that carried disagreement about methodology, but agreement about the objective's appeal. In a temple dedicated to a god who rewarded slaughter, Hadan felt his ring and laughed. High, unhinged, the sound of a man who had been immortal long enough to find the prospect of fighting something unkillable genuinely exciting. Beside him, Kakuzu checked his records and confirmed that the bounty on the Black Blur had been updated overnight. The new figure exceeded anything he had collected in over a century of hunting. The board was set. The pieces were moving. And on a mountain road in the land of hot water, 2 weeks after Amegakure, Orochimaru's hunting team made their first coordinated move. Tayuya was running a solo intelligence extraction, a dead drop 3 kilometers from their camp. Information from a broker who had been tracking Akatsuki movements for 6 months on their payroll. Standard protocol. She had run 100 similar pickups. The route was clear. The terrain was familiar. The team hit her at the midpoint of the return trip. She registered the first sign, a chemical tang in the air that tasted wrong, metallic, like something designed to interfere with respiratory function, and went for her flute. Her fingers touched the instrument's body, and her hands went numb. The chemical agent worked through skin contact on the flute's surface, pre-applied weighting target at the specific motor patterns required for her instrument. She dropped the flute, drew a kunai instead. Her curse seal flared, the power rising through her body like fire climbing through dry wood, and then died. A sealing specialist somewhere in the tree line had locked it down with a targeted suppression formula that hit her seal's activation matrix like a key locking a door from the outside. 4 figures materialized from the forest. Sound Village Anbu, the personal guard tier, Orochimaru's finest remaining operatives. They moved in a formation designed for capture rather than kill. Weighted nets reinforced with chakra-conductive thread, paralysis tags pre-charged and ready to deploy, and restraining equipment built for someone with her specific capabilities. Tayuya fought. She fought with her hands, her feet, the kunai she carried, and a reservoir of fury that burned hotter than the curse seal ever had. She broke one operative's wrist. She drove the kunai through another's thigh. She headbutted a third hard enough to crack his mask, but 4-on-1 without her primary weapon and without her curse seal enhancement was math that worked against her regardless of how hard she hit. The weighted net came from behind. The paralysis tags hit her neck and spine in a triple stack that overwhelmed her nervous system's resistance. She went down screaming obscenities, her mouth being the last thing to stop working. And the team had her in restraints before her muscles fully locked. One operative produced a brush and drew 3 characters on the road surface in her blood, taken from a cut on her forearm sustained during the struggle. The characters could be read as either a location designation or a profanity in the Land of Sound's regional dialect. Both readings were accurate. They vanished with her into the trees. Naruto returned to the pickup point 7 minutes later. He had felt the disruption, Tayuya's chakra signature flaring and then suppressing in a pattern that indicated external interference, and crossed the 3 kilometers from their camp at a speed that stripped leaves from trees in his wake. The clearing was empty. Her flute lay on the ground, the surface still carrying a faint chemical residue that his senses identified and categorized in a single breath. The blood characters on the road surface told him 2 things simultaneously: where they were taking her and exactly how she felt about being taken. He looked at the characters. Something cold settled behind his ribs, an emotion that existed in the space between fury and focus that compressed everything extraneous out of his processing and left only the forward momentum of a predator that had identified its prey. He picked up the flute, cleaned the chemical residue with a pulse of chaos energy that burned the agent off the surface without damaging the instrument, placed it inside his jacket. Then he mounted the Dark Rider and opened the throttle to its maximum setting. The Dark Rider screamed down the mountain road at a velocity that turned the surrounding forest into a single continuous blur of green. The engine's growl became a howl, a frequency that rattled windows in villages 3 kilometers to either side of his path. He leaned into corners at angles that would kill any rider without his reaction speed and his absolute mastery of the machine's physics. The road unfolded before him and vanished behind him, and he thought about nothing except the destination: Orochimaru's sanctum, the last fortress. The facility he had never mapped because it had never appeared in any intelligence stream, Buried beneath a mountain range in the land of sound, accessed through a tunnel network that predated the village itself. Defended by everything the snake had retained after losing 9 facilities to the Black Blur's systematic assault. Naruto knew the location now. Taiyuya's blood characters had given him coordinates that corresponded to a geographic region he had surveilled from high altitude during a reconnaissance pass 3 months prior. He had flagged the area then. Unusual thermal signatures beneath the mountain, the faintest trace of Orochimaru's personal chakra residual lingering in the stone, and filed it for future investigation. The future was now. 6 hours of sustained riding brought him to the Land of Sound's border. 4 more hours at reduced speed through terrain that grew increasingly hostile. Narrow mountain roads, switchbacks carved into cliff faces, bridges spanning gorges that dropped into permanent shadow below. He stopped once to refuel his body. A ration bar consumed in 12 seconds while the Dark Rider idled beneath him, and then resumed. Dawn came and went. Noon passed. The mountain range rose before him like a wall of stone teeth, and somewhere in its heart, behind layers of rock and reinforcement and the last dregs of Orochimaru's once vast operational network, Taiyuya waited. He reached the perimeter at dusk. The outer defense ring consisted of 16 sensor posts arranged in a 2-kilometer circle around the mountain's base. Each post contained a chakra detection array tuned to flag anything above civilian-level output entering the zone. They were sophisticated, redundant systems, overlapping coverage, sealed housings that resisted tampering. Naruto rode through them without slowing. Every sensor in his path overloaded and burned out from proximity to the chaos energy output of the Dark Rider's engine at full power, the same way a candle wick burns when exposed to a furnace. The detection network registered his presence for approximately half a second before it ceased to exist. The inner perimeter was a physical barrier, a reinforced gate built into the mountain's base, flanked by guard positions cut into the stone. 8 sound operatives held the gate. They had received warning from the outer ring's half-second alert. They were ready, weapons drawn, jutsu prepared, formation tight. Naruto drove the Dark Rider through the gate. The motorcycle hit the reinforced metal at 260 kilometers per hour. The chaos energy radiating from its frame turned the impact point into a molten circle that the bike punched through without losing appreciable momentum. The gate exploded inward. Twisted metal fragments spraying down the corridor beyond in a hail of shrapnel that sent every guard diving for cover. He rode through the corridor without stopping. The interior of the facility was a network of tunnels and chambers carved from the living rock, lit by fluorescent panels, lined with cable conduits and ventilation systems, smelling of antiseptic and the particular staleness of air that had been recycled too many times. He rode the Dark Rider through it at speeds that turned corners into exercises in pure physics. The tires gripping the stone through chaos-enhanced friction surfaces, the engine howling in the enclosed space at a volume that destroyed hearing within 50 meters. Guards appeared in the corridors ahead of him. Groups of 2, 4, 6 sound operatives in standard combat gear, deploying standard response protocols. He drew one submachine gun with his left hand while steering with his right and fired without reducing speed. The chaos-enhanced rounds left the barrel with that double detonation report, each bullet hitting flesh or stone with the force of a concentrated explosive and the speed of a guided projectile. Bodies flew backward. Walls cratered. The corridor behind him became a sequence of smoking craters and fallen figures. He encountered a sealed bulkhead, 3 meters thick, solid steel, designed to withstand a sustained siege. He drove the Dark Rider directly into it. The bike's frame, saturated with chaos energy, became a battering ram that hit the bulkhead at full speed and transferred every joule of kinetic energy plus the chaos output of its engine into the impact point. The steel bent inward like aluminum foil struck by a cannonball. The motorcycle stopped, its front wheel embedded in the deformed metal, frame twisted, engine sputtering. Naruto dismounted in a single smooth motion, sealed the damaged bike back into its scroll, and placed both palms flat against the bulkhead surface. Golden light spread through the metal from his hands, running along the molecular structure like electricity following a circuit. The steel superheated, turned orange, turned white, and then ran downward in liquid rivers that pooled on the stone floor and hissed against the cold. He stepped through the hole and continued on foot. The deeper levels of the facility were a maze, branching corridors, false dead ends, trapped intersections designed to confuse and delay an intruder. Naruto ignored the layout entirely. He extended his senses forward, located Tayuya's chakra signature, suppressed, muted, but present 300 meters ahead and 40 meters below, and cut a straight line toward her through every wall between them. Chaos spears punched through stone and steel alike. He walked through the facility the way a drill moves through earth, forward, always forward, creating his own corridor through the obstacles rather than following the paths designed to control his movement. Walls fell. Floors opened beneath his feet, dropping him to lower levels where he continued the straight line without pause. Support structures gave way and chunks of ceiling collapsed behind him, sealing the passage he had created. In the deepest corridor before the sanctum, Kabuto Yakushi stood waiting. He occupied the center of the hallway, a figure in a gray outfit with a medic's coat and a disposition that had long since abandoned any pretense of the mild-mannered assistant he had once performed. His body had changed in the months since Orochimaru's final modifications. His hands carried a gray pallor, dead tissue reanimated and repurposed, Orochimaru's cellular research applied to his own frame, with the particular recklessness of a man who viewed his body as a platform for experimentation rather than a vessel for living. His glasses caught the fluorescent light. His smile was empty and professional. The expression of someone who had calculated odds, found them unfavorable, and chosen to stand here anyway because the alternative was admitting irrelevance. "The black blur," Kabuto said. His voice carried a conversational tone that was entirely inappropriate for the circumstances. "Orochimaru-sama predicted you would come directly. He predicted you would come alone. He predicted the time frame to within 4 hours of your actual arrival." His hands rose, chakra scalpels forming along his fingers, the blue glow of medical ninjutsu repurposed as cutting instruments. "He did ask me to test one particular hypothesis before allowing you through." Naruto stopped walking. He looked at Kabuto with the flat assessment of someone cataloging an obstacle's dimensions before removing it. Kabuto moved. He was fast, faster than he had been in any previous encounter documented in intelligence reports. The modifications to his body included speed enhancements, borrowed from the same research that produced the Sound Force curse seals. He crossed the distance between them in a blur, his chakra scalpel sweeping in an arc that targeted the nerve clusters along Naruto's right arm. The arm that typically drew weapons, Naruto deflected the strike with a forearm block that redirected Kabuto's wrist upward and past his head. The scalpels cut air. Naruto's free hand formed a chaos spear and thrust it forward in a single motion. A golden lance aimed at center mass. Kabuto twisted sideways. The spear passed through the space his torso had occupied and embedded in the wall behind. He was inside Naruto's guard now, close range, where his medical knowledge of human anatomy gave him every advantage. His left hand shot forward, palm open, targeting the center of Naruto's chest. A technique formed on his fingertips, something that pulsed with a frequency Naruto recognized. The disruption hit. A pulse of medical frequency chakra tuned to a specific resonance, the junction point between Naruto's human nervous system and the chaos energy matrix running through his cells. The frequency hit that junction and vibrated it. The interface stuttered. For 2 seconds, the connection between his will and the chaos energy flowing through his body flickered like a light with a loose wire. Kabuto's eyes lit with triumph. His hand drew back for a lethal strike. The chakra scalpel aimed at the exposed throat of a target whose superhuman reactions had just faltered. "Fascinating," Kabuto said. "The interface between your..." 2 seconds ended. Naruto's hand closed around Kabuto's throat mid-sentence. The grip was absolute, fingers pressing into the soft tissue on either side of the windpipe with force that would have crushed stone. Kabuto's feet left the ground. His chakra scalpels flickered and died as the sudden pressure disrupted his concentration. Naruto looked into his eyes. The red burned with something that carried the weight of every corridor he had torn through, every wall he had split, every second that Tayuya remained in restraints because this man's master had decided to use her as bait. Anyone who gets in my way is my enemy. The words came out flat and final. He closed his fist. The sound was brief. Kabuto's body hit the floor and stayed there. A shape that had stopped being a person in the space between one heartbeat and the absence of the next. Naruto stepped over him without looking down and continued toward the sanctum door. The door was massive, carved stone reinforced with ceiling arrays that glowed with accumulated power. A masterwork of containment engineering that represented the peak of whatever sealing knowledge Orochimaru had retained. Naruto placed one palm against it and pushed chaos energy into the sealing matrix until every array overloaded simultaneously. The door blew inward off its hinges and crashed against the far wall of the sanctum with a sound like thunder in an enclosed space. Orochimaru's sanctum was vast, a cathedral-sized chamber carved from the mountain's heart, its ceiling lost in shadow above, its walls lined with specimen tanks and research equipment, and the accumulated trophies of a century of forbidden experimentation. The floor was smooth stone, polished to a mirror finish that reflected the blue-white light of the tanks. On the far side of the chamber, behind a ceiling barrier that glowed with blue energy, Tayuya stood with her wrists bound above her head and her feet barely touching the floor. Her face was bruised, a purple bloom across her left jaw, a split in her lower lip that had dried brown. Her eyes were open and blazing with fury, and the moment the door blew inward, she started screaming. "Kill him! Kill him now! Forget about me, and kill that snake-faced! Naruto-kun." The voice came from the center of the chamber. Orochimaru materialized from the shadows between specimen tanks, a figure that had discarded everything resembling human subtlety and replaced it with the open, predatory focus of something that had been waiting for this exact moment with the patience of a century-old hunter. He looked wrong. His body had always been a modified vessel, rebuilt, repurposed, enhanced beyond its original specifications through decades of surgical self-improvement. But what stood in the sanctum center now went beyond modification. His skin carried a luminescence that pulsed in a rhythm Naruto recognized, the golden undertone of chaos energy running through veins that were never designed to carry it. A replica, a copy built from fragmentary data extracted before the facilities fell. The copy was already killing him. Naruto could see it, the cellular degradation at the edges of Orochimaru's form, where the unstable energy was burning through tissue faster than his regeneration could compensate. The snake Sanin had injected himself with something that would tear him apart within hours. A last resort gambit. A final roll of the dice from a man who would rather burn from the inside than accept that something existed beyond his comprehension. "You have been very busy," Orochimaru said. His voice carried a new register, strained, fighting against the energy that was consuming him from within, but thrilled. The particular excitement of a scientist who had finally encountered a phenomenon worth dying for. 9 of my facilities, years of research. Kabuto, and now you come from me directly. His golden eyes, slit-pupiled, ancient, carrying a hunger that had outlasted kingdoms, fixed on Naruto with open desire. I need to understand what you are. I have spent my entire life pursuing the secrets of this world's power, and you represent something beyond all of it. I represent your death, Naruto said. He walked forward into the sanctum. His boots echoed against the polished stone. Give me the girl and I'll make it fast. Orochimaru smiled. The expression cracked the corners of his mouth, the skin splitting where the unstable energy had weakened the tissue. Golden light leaked from the cracks like blood from a wound. The girl lives or dies depending on this conversation's outcome. If I die, the barrier holding her collapses. He raised one hand. The chaos replica energy surged along his arm, unstable, flickering, throwing sparks of golden light that scorched the air. If the barrier collapses, the containment seals on her curse mark release simultaneously. The mark's full power, unfiltered and uncontrolled, will consume her in approximately 15 seconds. Tayuya went silent behind the barrier. Her eyes found Naruto's across the chamber. The fury in them had been replaced by something harder to look at. The expression of someone who had accepted being a bargaining chip and hated every atom of the universe for making it possible. Naruto stopped walking. He stood in the center of the sanctum and looked at the barrier, then at Orochimaru, then at Tayuya. "That barrier holds because you channel energy into it," Naruto said. "If you die, it collapses. If I break it from outside, the containment seals trigger." "Correct. So you want me to fight you while the barrier stays up, while she stays in it, while you hold her life as leverage? I want to understand you." Orochimaru's body shifted, the bones beneath his skin rearranging, his form elongating, the reptilian truth of his nature expressing itself through flesh that had abandoned all pretense of humanity. His jaw unhinged, his neck extended, his spine curved into something that could strike from 3 body lengths away. "And the only laboratory sufficient for studying you is combat." Naruto looked at him for one more second. Then he raised both hands and crossed his wrists, gathering chaos energy in a formation he had used 1,000 times, but now shaped with a new purpose. The energy condensed between his palms into a sphere the size of a fist, golden, stable, humming at a frequency that made the specimen tanks vibrate. He threw it. The sphere crossed the sanctum in a blink, a golden comet traveling horizontally past Orochimaru's position and hitting the ceiling barrier directly. The barrier absorbed the impact, its containment matrices designed to process energy input from the outside. The sphere vanished into the barrier's surface and disappeared. Orochimaru laughed. "Energy from outside strengthens the barrier. That's basic ceiling theory, Naruto-kun. You cannot." Inside the barrier, the sphere reappeared, reformed from the energy the barrier had absorbed, reconstituted by the chaos energy's inherent structure within the containment field. It floated before Tayuya's restrained hands and gently pulsed. She stared at it. "Grab it," Naruto said. She grabbed it. The sphere dissolved on contact with her skin and spread through her body, golden light racing along her chakra pathways, reaching the curse mark on her neck and wrapping around it in a containment lattice that burned with independent power. The chaos energy formed its own seal around the curse mark, a secondary containment that would hold regardless of what happened to the barrier's external mechanisms. The curse mark could still release if the barrier fell, but now it would release into a chaos containment lattice that would hold the energy rather than allowing it to consume her. Orochimaru's smile died. His golden eyes narrowed. "Clever. You just made my leverage worthless." "Your leverage was worthless the moment I walked through that door." Naruto's hands dropped to his sides. The red in his eyes intensified, a color that had nothing to do with reflection and everything to do with the intent gathering behind them. "You have 3 seconds to come at me before I come at you." Orochimaru came at him. The snake Sanin's body erupted from its human shape like a chrysalis splitting open, his form expanding, multiplying, the white snake body technique activating at full power as his flesh became a mass of serpentine forms that filled the sanctum's cathedral space. Each snake was enormous, white-scaled, golden-eyed, carrying the unstable chaos replica energy in veins that glowed beneath their skin. Dozens of them, a writhing mass of modified flesh that struck from every angle simultaneously. Naruto drew both guns. The submachine guns barked, that double detonation report echoing off the chamber walls as chaos-enhanced rounds tore through snake bodies in bursts of fire and shredded flesh. Each round detonated on impact, blowing fist-sized holes through scaled hides and spraying the polished floor with ichor. He fired while moving, his boots lifting him 3 feet off the ground, hovering backward as the mass of serpents surged forward, both weapons sweeping in arcs that created overlapping fields of destruction. Snake bodies fell, severed, perforated, blown apart by sustained fire, but more rose from the mass. Orochimaru's regeneration was legendary. The ability to regrow any lost tissue, to emerge from his own body unharmed, to continue as long as a single cell of his true form remained intact. The chaos replica energy in his cells accelerated the regeneration further, burning his lifespan like fuel in exchange for speed that made his reformation nearly instantaneous. Naruto holstered the guns. Bullets were insufficient for something that regrew faster than it was destroyed. He needed to get close enough for the real chaos energy in his body to interact with the unstable replica in Orochimaru's. Proximity would destabilize the copy. The same way 2 identical frequencies played simultaneously create destructive interference, he flew forward into the mass. Snake bodies struck at him from every direction, fangs the size of daggers, coils thick enough to crush stone, each one carrying venom and chakra and that flickering golden light. He wove between them at speeds that made their strikes hit each other instead of him, every dodge carrying him deeper into the mass, closer to the center where Orochimaru's true body would be hiding, a coil wrapped around his waist. He grabbed it with both hands and tore it apart, the muscles beneath the scales separating under force that exceeded anything biological tissue could withstand. Another struck at his face. He caught it behind the head and channeled a chaos spear through its skull, the golden lance erupting from the back of the serpent's head and continuing through two more behind it. He was in the center now. The true body, Orochimaru's actual form, the serpentine original hidden within the mass, hung suspended in the middle of the writhing flesh like a spider at the center of its web. His golden eyes were wide, the chaos replica energy blazing through his form at maximum output, the last few hours of its fatal lifespan being burned in a single desperate expenditure. 8 branches technique. Orochimaru screamed. His body swelled, growing, expanding beyond the limits of the sanctum itself. The ceiling cracked. The walls buckled outward. 8 massive serpent heads erupted from his form. The legendary technique that called upon the power of the 8-headed serpent Yamata no Orochi, each head the size of a building, each one opening jaws wide enough to swallow a house. The sanctum's ceiling gave way entirely. Stone and earth rained down and were swept aside by the sheer mass of Orochimaru's transformation as it burst upward through the mountain itself. The facility collapsed around them, tunnels caving in, chambers compressing, the entire underground complex becoming rubble as the 8-headed serpent tore through the mountain's heart and erupted into the night sky above. Naruto rose with it. His boots fired, the jet thrust carrying him upward through the shower of debris and stone, between the massive serpent necks, emerging into the open air above the destroyed mountain peak. The 8 heads spread against the stars, each one the size of a train car, each one glowing with that unstable golden light, each one turning toward him with the simultaneous focus of a predator that had become its own army. Tayuya was somewhere below, still in the barrier, still within the mountain's collapsing structure. The chaos containment lattice would hold her safe from the curse mark's release, but a mountain falling on her head was a different problem entirely. He had to end this fast. The 8 heads struck in unison. 8 massive serpents, each one carrying the force of a natural disaster, descending toward his hovering form from every possible angle. A 3-dimensional kill box of scaled flesh and golden fire. Naruto placed his hands together. Chaos energy concentrated between his palms, a sphere that grew, intensified, burned brighter than the false gold running through Orochimaru's dying veins. He held it until the serpent heads were close enough to feel their breath on his skin. Then he released it in a single burst. A chaos blast shaped into a horizontal disc that expanded outward from his position at the speed of sound. The disc-shaped blast wave hit all 8 serpent necks simultaneously, cutting through them at the same height with a force that cauterized the wounds as it severed. 8 heads fell, tumbling through the night air, crashing into the mountain's flanks in avalanches of stone and dead flesh. The body beneath, Orochimaru's true form, exposed now without the protective shell of the 8 heads, writhed against the mountainside. The chaos replica energy in his cells was burning out. The proximity effect was accelerating it. Naruto's genuine chaos output destabilizing the copy the way sunlight destroys a photograph left in direct exposure. Orochimaru's flesh was coming apart, cells burning from the inside, golden light leaking from every surface as the replica energy overloaded beyond containment. Naruto descended. He landed on the dying serpent's body, his boots touching scaled flesh that was already turning to ash beneath him. He walked along the length of the massive form toward the center, where Orochimaru's face emerged from the serpentine mass. Still human from the nose up, still golden-eyed, still carrying that expression of desperate hunger, even as his body disintegrated around him. "What are you?" Orochimaru whispered. His voice was raw, stripped of its usual silk by the pain of cellular disintegration. "Tell me, tell me what you are. I spent my life seeking the secrets of existence, Give me this one answer. Naruto looked down at him. The red eyes held zero sympathy and zero satisfaction. Just the flat assessment of someone witnessing a process reach its conclusion. Something you were never going to understand. He placed one palm on Orochimaru's chest, something that was never yours to take. The chaos energy pulse was small, precise in its targeting, a burst that reached into the failing cells and completed what the replica's instability had already begun. The remaining golden light in Orochimaru's body flared once, a final brilliant flash, and then went out. Orochimaru's eyes closed. The golden slit pupils faded to dull amber. The serpentine body beneath Naruto's feet turned gray and began collapsing inward, centuries of accumulated modification reverting to baseline organic matter without the will that had sustained it. It crumbled. Ash and scale and dead tissue falling away from the mountainside like snow melting off a cliff. The snake Sanin, who had pursued immortality across 100 years and 1,000 atrocities, died having touched the surface of something infinite. And having understood in his final moment that the surface was as close as he was ever going to get, Naruto turned and dropped from the collapsing form. His boots fired, carrying him downward through the ruined mountain, through tunnels of shattered stone, through the remnants of corridors he had torn open hours ago, back toward the place where the ceiling barrier had held Tayuya. He found her in a pocket of preserved space, the barrier still glowing around her, maintained by residual energy even after Orochimaru's death. The collapse of the mountain had been arrested in her immediate vicinity by the barrier's structural reinforcement. She hung in her restraints, surrounded by rubble on every side except the sphere of blue light that kept the mountain's weight at bay. He walked to the barrier and placed his hand against it. The golden lattice around Tayuya's curse mark was still active, holding, stable, independent of the external barrier's fate. He could collapse the barrier safely. He pushed. The barrier's remaining energy hit his palm and dissipated, absorbed, processed, eliminated. The blue light died. The restraints around Tayuya's wrists lost their locking mechanism and released. She dropped 3 inches to the ground, stumbled, and caught herself against the stone wall. Her wrists were raw. Her jaw was swelling. Her hair fell across her face in a curtain that she pushed aside with a hand that trembled once before she steadied it. She looked at him. He reached inside his jacket and produced her flute, cleaned, intact, exactly as it had been before the chemical agent touched its surface. She took it, held it against her chest with both hands. Her jaw worked, teeth grinding, words forming and dying, the particular struggle of someone who had too many things to say and insufficient willingness to be vulnerable enough to say any of them. "Took you long enough," she managed. He said nothing. He took her hand, his grip firm and warm around her cold fingers, and led her through the rubble toward the surface, up through collapsed tunnels, through gaps in fallen stone, through the destroyed architecture of a facility that would never hold another prisoner. His free hand formed chaos spears as needed, small ones, blade-shaped, carving a path through debris that blocked their route. They emerged on the mountainside under a sky full of stars. The mountain's peak was gone, sheared off by the 8-headed serpent's emergence and subsequent destruction. The facility beneath was a tomb filled with nothing living except the corpses of Orochimaru's ambition. Naruto unsealed the Dark Rider. The motorcycle materialized, battered from the gate impact, the front cowling dented, but the engine still humming at his touch. The chaos energy power plant was undamaged. Everything else was cosmetic. Tayuya mounted behind him. She wrapped her arms around his midsection with the specific pressure of someone who intended to hold on until the end of the world, and possibly after. He rode them down the mountain. The night air was cold and clean. 3 days later, Danzo made his move. Naruto felt the presence of the route team from 2 kilometers out. 12 signatures, each one suppressed to the point of near invisibility, each one carrying a secondary energy output that suggested modification beyond standard operative parameters. They were positioned along a ridge overlooking the road between the land of sound and the land of fire, spread in a formation that covered every approach angle with overlapping engagement zones. He stopped the Dark Rider. Tayuya felt the change in engine pitch and tensed behind him, her hand going to her flute case with the reflexive speed of someone who had learned that stopping on the open road meant fighting. 12 ahead, he said. Root. Danzo. The signatures carry a secondary energy pattern, modified, something I haven't encountered in their standard operatives before. Tayuya dismounted and drew her flute in a single motion. Then let's find out what the old bastard's been cooking. Naruto killed the engine. He swung off the Dark Rider and sealed it away. The road was straight here, a 100-meter stretch of packed earth running between two forested ridges. The kill zone. The first operative dropped from the tree line. Blank mask, standard root gear, black, featureless, carrying the absolute absence of personality that Danzo's conditioning produced. He landed in the road 30 meters ahead and simply stood there. Bait. An offering. Naruto raised one hand. A chaos spear formed and fired in a single motion, a golden lance that crossed the distance in a blink and struck the operative through center mass. The body flew backward and hit the tree behind it with killing force. Clean. Final. Then the operative stood up, the wound in its chest, a hole the size of a fist, cauterized at the edges by chaos energy, glowed with a light that Naruto recognized, the spinning pattern of a Sharingan's reality rewriting technique. Izanagi. The wound rewound, flesh reformed. The operative straightened as though nothing had happened and resumed its standing position. 11 more dropped from the tree lines. 12 total. Each one carrying that modified Izanagi seal, a single-use resurrection embedded in their very cells through the transplanted Sharingan tissue Danzo had been hoarding for decades. 12 deaths. 12 continuations. Naruto's eyes moved across the formation. He processed the math. Standard engagement would require 12 separate kills for each operative, exhausting their resurrection before the actual death could take. 144 kills for a formation of 12. Possible, wasteful, time-consuming. And somewhere in this formation, Danzo himself was watching, waiting for an opening. The 12 charged simultaneously, moving in perfect coordination without verbal communication. Their conditioning so complete that they operated as a single organism with 12 bodies. They hit from every angle at once. Weapons drawn, techniques prepared, each one moving with Jonin-level speed, and the particular fearlessness of someone who had already been stripped of everything that made death threatening. Naruto moved. He hit the first 3 in rapid succession. Chaos spear through the throat of one, a boot to the chest of another, a point-blank gunshot to the third's mask. All 3 fell. All 3 glowed. All 3 stood back up. Tayuya's flute touched her lips. The first note rang out across the ridge, a sound that carried the particular resonance of her most powerful genjutsu, the nervous system hijack that turned a body's own signals against it. The sound wave hit the 12 operatives and met something unexpected. Silence. Their auditory systems had been sealed, physically sealed. The eardrums removed and replaced with solid bone during their modification. They could receive commands through the Sharingan Link network in their cells, but could hear nothing from the outside. "They're deaf!" Tayuya shouted. "The genjutsu can't land!" Naruto was already adapting. If the Izanagi seal gave each operative one resurrection, then destroying the seal itself before killing the body would eliminate the safety net. The seal required intact Sharingan cells to function, and Sharingan cells shared the same fundamental weakness that every chakra system technique shared when facing chaos energy. He caught the nearest operative by the arm. His hand closed around the forearm, where if Danzo's own transplant architecture was any guide, the modified Sharingan cells would be implanted. He pulsed chaos energy directly into the arm. The golden light flared. The transplanted cells within reacted, the stolen Uchiha genetic material encountering an energy type it could not process, overloading, burning out the way every other chakra-based system burned out under chaos exposure. The operative's Izanagi seal died. The secondary glow faded from its body. Naruto killed it. This time it stayed dead. One down. He moved to the next, catching, pulsing, destroying the seal, then finishing the body. 3 seconds per operative, 4 kills in 12 seconds. The formation was collapsing around him, the remaining 8 scattering into evasive patterns as they processed that their resurrection seals were being neutralized. Then the disruption spike hit, a projectile, small, needle-thin, almost invisible, fired from a position in the tree line behind the formation. It struck Naruto in the back of the neck. The payload delivered on impact. A medical frequency chakra burst tuned to the same resonance Kabuto had found. The interface between nervous system and chaos energy stuttered. The golden light in his veins flickered. 2 seconds. Danzo emerged from the tree line. His stride carried 7 decades of battlefield certainty. His arm, the reconstructed one, carrying fewer Sharingan than before but carrying enough, glowed with stored chakra. His killing intent preceded him like a wall of pressure that bent the grass on either side of his path. He had one hand forming a seal, a technique held ready, something designed for this 2-second window, something that would lock, bind, suppress, and contain in the single heartbeat of vulnerability the disruption spike created. Tayuya moved. Her flute came up. The root operatives were deaf, but Danzo was still hearing. He had never submitted to the same modifications he forced upon his tools. His ears worked, his nervous system was intact, and Tayuya's genjutsu, refined through months of combat alongside someone who moved at speeds beyond perception, was built for exactly this. The single critical moment when her partner needed interference, and she was the only variable in the field capable of providing it. The note hit Danzo like a fist. His nervous system received contradictory signals from every direction simultaneously. His muscles locked. His seal formation froze mid-gesture. The technique he had been holding ready, whatever it was, whatever it would have done, died half-formed as his body refused the orders his brain was sending. The 2-second window closed. Naruto's chaos energy reconnected with his nervous system. The golden light stabilized. He turned and looked at the remaining operatives, still scattered, still running their evasive patterns. And then at Danzo, frozen in Tayuya's genjutsu with one hand extended and his single eye wide with the knowledge of failure, Naruto killed the remaining 8 root operatives in 4 seconds. He moved through them without slowing, each one receiving the same treatment. Seal burn, then death. Bodies fell in a sequence that followed his path across the road like dominoes triggered by the same hand. Then he walked to Danzo. The old man stood locked in place by Tayuya's technique. His muscles were rigid. His jaw was clenched. His single visible eye tracked Naruto's approach with the fevered intensity of a man watching his own death walk toward him and being unable to move. Naruto stopped in front of him. He raised one hand and placed it on Danzo's forehead, his palm flat against the skin, fingers spread, the touch almost gentle in its precision. "I told you what would happen," Naruto said. His voice carried the weight of 4 years since a concrete wall and a warning given to a man too arrogant to heed it. "If your shadows reach for me again." His palm pulsed. Golden light flowed from his hand directly into Danzo's Sharingan arm, finding every stolen eye, every transplanted cell, every piece of genetic material ripped from the Uchiha clan during the massacre Danzo himself had orchestrated. The light found them and burned them. Each eye combusted in sequence, a chain of golden fire running down the arm like a lit fuse, every stolen Sharingan detonating within its socket as the chaos energy unmade the chakra structures that kept them viable. Danzo screamed. Tayuya's genjutsu held his body still, but his vocal cords functioned, a raw sound that carried decades of pain long overdue. The Izanagi seals burned with the eyes. Every safety net, every stolen resurrection, every trophy from a massacre paid for with children's blood. Gone in 3 seconds of golden fire. The arm went dead. Charred tissue, empty sockets, a limb that would never channel stolen power again. Naruto's other hand came forward. It formed a fist. The impact was singular, absolute and final. A strike to the center of Danzo's chest that carried enough force to stop the heart it hit and ensure it never resumed. The genjutsu released. The body fell. Danzo Shimura, who had spent 7 decades accumulating power through other people's suffering and using children as blank canvases for his ideology, hit the road surface and remained there. His single eye stared at the sky without seeing it. His remaining hand was still half formed into the seal he would never complete. Naruto looked down at him for exactly as long as the moment required. Then he turned away. The root operatives, the dead ones, lay scattered across the road, but behind them, in the tree line from which they had originally dropped, 7 more figures stood, different from the attackers. These carried weapons at their sides rather than drawn. Their masks were the same blank root design, but their body language was wrong for operatives awaiting orders. They stood with the particular stillness of people who had just watched their commanding officer die and were processing what that meant. Naruto looked at them. They looked at him. Tayuya stood beside him with her flute still raised, ready for a second engagement. Naruto lowered his hands. He looked at the 7 figures. Children grown into weapons, identities stripped, standing in the wreckage of the system that had consumed their lives. "Go find names," he said. One of them, the smallest, the one whose mask was slightly crooked, raised a hand to the blank porcelain covering its face and lifted the mask away. Beneath was a face. Young, pale, carrying an expression that had never been allowed to exist under the mask. Confusion, raw and genuine, the look of someone hearing an instruction for which they had received zero training. The figure turned and walked into the forest. The others followed. One by one, masks removed and carried rather than worn. 7 figures disappearing into the trees without a word. Tayuya lowered her flute. She looked at the road, the bodies, the blood, the old man lying in the center of it with his arm of dead eyes and his chest caved inward. "Good riddance," she said. Naruto unsealed the Dark Rider. They mounted and rode. The weeks that followed carried the weight of a world rearranging itself. Naruto and Tayuya rode the highways between nations, while intelligence networks burned with information and the powerful recalculated their positions. The destruction of Orochimaru rippled through the criminal underground, the snake's former territory becoming contested ground, his surviving operatives scattering into a dozen factions that fought each other for the scraps. The elimination of Danzo sent shockwaves through Konoha's political structure, Root's hidden apparatus suddenly masterless, its surviving members emerging from the shadows with blank faces and new questions. And Akatsuki moved. Naruto felt them before he saw them. The ring signatures that Akatsuki members carried, detectable at range by the specific chakra frequency they emitted. He cataloged each encounter as it developed, and he engaged each one with the efficiency of someone clearing items from a list. Kasame found him first. The coastal highway in the land of water, a long stretch of road running between fishing villages, the sea visible on one side and forested hills rising on the other. The afternoon was gray with salt spray and the smell of the ocean. The Dark Rider's engine competed with the sound of waves breaking against the seawall. Kasame stood in the center of the road, 300 meters ahead. His silhouette was unmistakable. Massive, broad-shouldered, blue-skinned, carrying Samahada across his back in the familiar position of a man who never went anywhere without his sword. He was alone. Itachi's absence was notable. Naruto stopped the Dark Rider 50 meters away. Tayuya tensed behind him. "I've got this," he said. She dismounted without argument. She moved to the seawall and sat on it with her flute across her knees, the posture of someone settling in to watch rather than participate. She had seen what he could do. She trusted his assessment of whether a fight required her. Naruto dismounted and walked forward. His hands stayed at his sides. Kasame grinned. The expression split his blue face into something that belonged on a deep-sea predator, all teeth, all appetite. He reached behind him and swung Samahada off his back, planting the sword's wrapped tip on the road surface with a sound that cracked the stone beneath. "The black blur," Kasame said. His voice rumbled. "You killed my partner's kid brother's ego. You blew up half a village. You made Pain run." The grin widened. "I wanted to see what all the fuss was about before I die. Or before you do. Whichever. Your sword eats chakra," Naruto said. "Samahada devours everything. That's its nature. Try it on me." Kasame's grin reached its maximum expression. He charged, covering the distance between them in 3 enormous strides, Samahada swinging in a horizontal arc that would bisect anything in its path at waist height. The sword's bandages ripped away under the force of the swing, revealing the scaled, spike-covered blade beneath. Its mouth opened, the living weapon's maw gaping for the energy it could already taste approaching. Samahada made contact with Naruto's raised forearm. The sword bit. Its scales dug into the golden energy radiating from Naruto's skin. Its absorption mechanism activated, the ancient, hungry technique that let it devour any chakra-based energy source it touched. The sword screamed. The sound was inhuman, a shriek from a living weapon that had bitten into something toxic. Samahada's scales reversed direction, pressing flat against the blade in a defensive posture. The absorption mechanism recoiled. The mouth snapped shut. The entire sword went rigid in Kasame's grip and began pulling away, twisting against his hands, trying to release, trying to get away from the energy source it had just tasted. Kasame's eyes widened. In all his years carrying Samahada, through wars, through legendary battles, through engagements against the most powerful chakra users alive, he had never seen the sword reject a meal. Samahada ate everything. That was its singular function and its singular joy. Until now. The sword ripped itself from Kasame's grip. It flew backward, launched by its own desperate withdrawal reflex, and embedded itself in the road surface 20 meters behind its wielder with a sound like a giant's needle piercing stone. It stayed there, vibrating, refusing to return. Kasame looked at his empty hands, then at Naruto, then at the road behind him where his sword was having what could only be described as an existential crisis. He laughed. The sound was genuine, deep, resonant, carrying authentic amusement and something that sounded almost like respect. Well, that's a first. Fight without it, Naruto said. Wouldn't have it any other way. Kasame formed seals. The moisture in the air responded, the salt spray from the ocean, the humidity hanging over the road, every molecule of water within 200 meters rushing toward him in a convergence that turned the air visible. Water release, giant shark bomb. The technique was massive, a construct of compressed water in the shape of a shark that filled the entire road and rose higher than the trees, a tidal wave with teeth surging toward Naruto with the weight of an ocean compressed to a single strike. Naruto raised one gun. He fed chaos energy into the magazine, a sustained pulse that turned every round in the clip into something beyond ammunition. He fired a single shot. The round left the barrel at 3 times its standard velocity, a golden tracer that cut a line through the air and hit the giant shark bomb directly in its open mouth. The detonation was immediate and complete. The shark technique exploded outward in a sphere of superheated steam. The entire mass of water flashed evaporating in a single instant. As the chaos-enhanced round's energy release exceeded the technique's structural integrity by a factor of 20, steam billowed across the road. Visibility dropped to nothing. Kasame moved within the cloud, his body adapting to the aquatic environment his own technique had created, his shark skin physiology giving him full sensory awareness in water-saturated air. He struck from Naruto's left, a massive fist carrying the physical power of a man who could wrestle tailed beasts in close quarters. His speed was real. His strength was genuine. He was one of the most powerful physical combatants alive, even without his sword. Naruto caught the fist. His hand closed around Kasame's blue knuckles and held them still. The impact force absorbed by a body designed to withstand pressures that would crush mountains. Kasame's arm stopped dead. Every ounce of forward momentum vanished into Naruto's grip like sound into a void. Kasame looked at his captured fist, then at the boy holding it. The grin was still there, smaller now, but present, appreciative. "Yeah," Kasame said, "I figured." Naruto drove his free hand forward, an open palm strike to the center of Kasame's chest that carried enough force to crack the ribs beneath and send the massive man skidding backward across the wet road for 30 meters. Kasame hit the guardrail at the road's edge and bent it outward with his body. He tried to rise, made it to one knee. Blood ran from his mouth, blue-tinged, matching his skin, the specific circulatory fluid of a man who was more shark than human beneath the surface. His ribs were wrong. His breathing was wet. Something internal had broken. He looked at Naruto through the clearing steam. The grin remained, weaker, strained, but genuine. "You know," he said, his voice rough with fluid in his lungs, "I always wanted to fight something that made me feel like a regular person again. Something that reminded me I'm mortal." He coughed, blue blood. "Thanks for that." Naruto walked forward. His boots echoed on the wet road. Kasame closed his eyes. The grin softened into something that looked, in its final expression, almost peaceful. "Do it clean," Kasame said. Naruto did it clean. A single chaos spear through the heart, golden, instant, and carrying enough energy to end everything in a single pulse. The shark man's body went still. The grin remained fixed on his face like a mask he had decided to wear into whatever came after. Naruto turned and walked back toward Tayuya. She was standing now, off the seawall, watching him approach with her flute held loose in one hand. Behind them, on the road, Samahata pulled itself free from the stone and crawled toward its former master's body with the slow, grieving movement of a dog approaching something it already knew. Naruto mounted the Dark Rider. Tayuya climbed on behind him. They rode. 2 weeks later, the border between the land of earth and the land of wind, a mountain pass that cut through terrain too hostile for most travelers, accessible only to those willing to endure the altitude and the cold. Naruto and Tayuya were transiting through en route to a data cache he had flagged months ago when the ring signatures appeared on his awareness at range, 2 of them. Moving in concert, approaching from altitude, 1 high, 1 ground level, Deidara, Sasori, the Akatsuki art department. Naruto stopped the Dark Rider and looked up. High above the pass, silhouetted against gray cloud, a white clay bird circled with patient predatory focus. Its wingspan was enormous, 20 meters tip to tip, big enough to carry its rider and a payload that could level a city block. Deidara sat ash-strided with the lazy confidence of a bomber pilot who had never encountered effective anti-air. On the road ahead, barely visible in the pass's narrow confines, a figure in an Akatsuki cloak moved forward, surrounded by hundreds of shapes. Puppets. Sasori's 3rd Kazakaji puppet collection, the 100 puppet performance, each one trailing chakra threads back to the hunched figure at their center. The pass floor was filled with them, a tide of articulated weapons advancing in formation. The art nerds, Tayuya said, already dismounting. Stay behind me for this one. Like hell. He looked at her. She looked back. Her jaw was set. Fine, he said. Handle the puppets. I'll handle the sky. She grinned, all teeth, fierce, the expression of someone who had been waiting for a chance to use her full capabilities against something worthy. Her flute rose to her lips. The puppets were wood and metal and chakra thread. They had systems that could be interfered with. The threads were energy constructs that carried commands from user to puppet through frequency-based signaling. Tayuya's genjutsu operated on frequencies. She could jam those signals the same way she jammed nerve impulses in living targets. The first note rang out across the pass. The sound wave hit the puppet formation and scattered through the chakra threads connecting each puppet to Sasori's control. Static entered the signal. Puppet stuttered, arms jerking, legs stopping mid-step. The precise coordination of the formation dissolving into chaos as conflicting frequencies contaminated their command architecture. Sasori's hooded head turned toward Tayuya. His control tightened, flooding the threads with additional signal to override the interference. The puppets resumed their advance, but slower, less coordinated. The interference was a drag on his system that required constant correction. Naruto was already in the air. His boots fired and he rose like a missile, vertical, accelerating, the ground falling away beneath him as he climbed toward Deidara's altitude. The clay bird banked to evade, Deidara's hands already forming new constructs, smaller birds and insects made of explosive clay dropping from his position like a cluster munition. The explosive constructs fell toward Naruto's ascending path. Dozens of them, each one a shaped charge that would detonate on proximity, filling the air with overlapping blast zones that created an impassable wall of fire. Naruto triggered chaos control. The world went gray. The falling constructs froze. The clay bird above froze mid-bank. Deidara froze with his hands full of clay in his mouth, the one in his palm, open mid-sculpt. The mountain pass below froze. Tayuya froze mid-note. The wind froze. Naruto rose through the suspended clay bombs, weaving between frozen explosives with unhurried ease, placing a golden sigil on each one as he passed. A touch, a mark, dozens of them, each one receiving the same small inscription of chaos energy that would activate on time resumption. He reached Deidara's altitude. The clay bird hung in frozen air, its wings spread, its body carrying the bomber and his supplies. Naruto hovered before it at eye level. He looked at Deidara's frozen face. The man's expression was caught between arrogance and calculation, still deciding what technique to deploy, still believing himself safe at altitude where ground-level threats could never reach. Naruto descended, passed through the field of frozen clay bombs, continued downward to ground level where the puppet formation spread across the pass floor in a river of articulated bodies. He walked among them, moving between frozen shapes that towered above his head, each one carrying weapons and poison and the mechanical precision of a master craftsman's life work. He found Sasori's position at the rear of the formation. The hunched figure in the Akatsuki cloak was a puppet itself, the third Kazekage shell containing within it the true body. The true body was a converted human frame. Sasori himself transformed into a puppet with only a single organic core remaining. The heart container in his chest, the one piece of living tissue that anchored his consciousness to the physical world. Naruto placed a chaos spear against the chest of the third Kazekage puppet. The golden lance rested there, suspended in frozen time, its tip touching the puppet's armored surface with the lightest possible contact. On time resumption, the lance would fire through the Kazekage shell, through the interior housing, through the heart container. He walked back to the center of the road, snapped his fingers. Time resumed. The sky erupted. Every clay construct carrying a chaos sigil detonated simultaneously, dozens of explosions blooming in the air above the pass, turning Deidara's carefully positioned bombing corridor into a fireworks display that consumed his own creations. The chain of detonations reached upward, a cascading flower of fire that climbed toward the clay bird itself. Deidara saw it coming. His eyes went wide. His hands moved, trying to detach from the clay bird, trying to create an escape construct, trying to do anything in the half second between time resumption and the detonation wave reaching his altitude. The fire reached him. The clay bird, made of the same explosive compound as every other construct, absorbed the chain reaction. It detonated. The explosion at altitude was a sun being born, a sphere of fire and force that turned the gray clouds orange and sent a shockwave through the mountain pass, strong enough to strip loose stone from the cliff faces. Below, the chaos spear fired through Sasori's puppet, through the Kazekage shell, through the interior, through the heart container. The golden lance emerged from the puppet's back, carrying a fragment of destroyed tissue, the last piece of Sasori's organic body, split and cauterized, and ended in the same instant it registered the attack. The puppet formation collapsed. 300 puppets lost their animating signals simultaneously and fell, wooden bodies crashing to the pass floor in a rain of articulated limbs and hollow faces. The sound of 300 puppets hitting stone filled the mountain pass like applause from an empty theater. Tayuya lowered her flute. She stood in the center of a road carpeted with fallen puppet bodies, looking up at the fading fireball in the sky and the rain of ash drifting downward. "I'm the coolest," Naruto said. Tayuya looked at him. He was standing beside the dark rider with his hands in his jacket pockets and his red eyes reflecting the dying firelight from above. His expression carried the faintest possible suggestion of satisfaction, the barest edge of a smile that would never fully form. She stared at him for 3 full seconds. Then, "You absolute tool." But her lips were twitching. He mounted the bike. She followed. They rode through the carpet of fallen puppets and out the far end of the pass, the ash from Deidara's final explosion drifting down around them like gray snow. Hidan and Kakuzu came together. They always did. The immortal zealot and the immortal accountant, bound by Akatsuki's pairing system into a partnership that functioned through mutual tolerance and complementary unkillability. The encounter happened in an open field, grassland stretching flat in every direction, the kind of terrain that offered zero concealment and zero tactical advantage to either party. Naruto had felt their approach for hours and chosen this ground specifically. Open terrain meant he could operate at full speed without concern for collateral geometry. Hidan stood in the field with his triple-bladed scythe over one shoulder and a grin that bordered on religious ecstasy. His silver hair caught the afternoon sun. His bare chest displayed the Jishin circle, a pendant of ritual significance that marked him as a man whose god had granted him the inability to die. "Finally," Hidan shouted, his voice carrying across the field with the particular volume of someone who had never learned to modulate. "A sacrifice worthy of Jashin-sama, the Black Blur, the heretic who defies death by existing wrong. Lord Jashin demands your pain." Kakuzu stood beside him, stitched, ancient, carrying the particular patience of someone who had been alive long enough to find their partner's enthusiasm exhausting. His 5 hearts pulsed beneath his cloak, each one a stolen organ powering a different elemental affinity, each one requiring separate destruction to bring him down. The bounty alone makes this worthwhile, Kakuzu said. His voice was gravel and threat. Shut up and fight. Naruto looked at both of them. His assessment was completed in a single breath. Hidan, immortality through religious curse. Kakuzu, immortality through stolen hearts. Both functioned within the chakra system's framework. Both were therefore vulnerable to the same fundamental incompatibility that made every chakra-based technique fail against chaos energy. He drew one gun. The other hand formed a chaos spear. Start running, he said. Hidan charged with a scream that was equal parts battle cry and prayer. His scythe swung in a wide arc designed to draw blood. The ritual required his opponent's blood to establish the voodoo link that made his curse truly dangerous. Every fight Hidan had ever won began with a single cut, a single drop of blood on his tongue, then the circle, then the link, then the agony. Naruto sidestepped the scythe without shifting his weight. The blade passed his chest by a centimeter and hit nothing. Hidan swung again, backhand, aimed lower, going for the legs. Naruto lifted one foot and let the blade pass beneath it. Stay still, you blasphemous little! Naruto fired. The chaos-enhanced round hit Hidan's right shoulder and detonated. The arm holding the scythe separated from the body at the joint, blown free by an explosion that cauterized the wound as it severed. The arm and scythe hit the grass 10 meters away. Hidan looked at his missing arm, then at Naruto. His grin did something strange. It wavered. For the first time since receiving Jashin's gift, the wound did not immediately begin regenerating. The stump was burned, cauterized at a frequency that the immortality curse could not process. The cells that would normally reach toward each other and reform were inert, their chakra pathways destroyed at the molecular level by the chaos energy residue in the wound. What? Hidan looked at his stump. His immortal face carried an expression it had never worn, confusion that was becoming fear. What did you do to me? That should heal, Lord Jashin. Your god operates within a system, Naruto said. He walked forward. His stride was unhurried. I operate outside it. He fired again. The round hit Hidan's left knee. The leg buckled, the joint destroyed, the bone shattered, and the regeneration that should have followed failing to engage. Hidan fell, screaming. The screaming was different from his usual theatrical shrieks of pleasure and pain. This was raw, genuine, the sound of someone who had forgotten what permanent damage felt like being reminded. Naruto stood over him. Your immortality requires your chakra pathways to carry the curse signal to every cell. If I destroy those pathways... He placed one boot on Hidan's chest. Golden energy pulsed downward through the contact point. The signal stops. The pulse spread through Hidan's body. Every chakra pathway it touched burned out. The Jashin curse, maintained by a network of religious frequency chakra circulating constantly through the zealot system, lost its infrastructure. The circulation stopped. The curse went silent. Hidan became mortal in the span of 2 seconds. His eyes went wide with the specific terror of someone who had been granted the inability to fear death and had just had that grant revoked. No, Lord Jashin, please. I am your servant. Naruto put a final round through his heart. The screaming stopped. Kakuzu watched his partner die with the expression of someone noting a development. His hands formed seals. The 5 elemental hearts within his body activated simultaneously. Fire, wind, water, earth, lightning, each one pushing masked constructs from his back that spread into the air like a formation of nightmares. 5 hearts, Naruto said. 5 kills. Try it, Kakuzu said. Naruto didn't try. He succeeded. 5 chaos spears formed simultaneously, his control over the energy having refined through months of continuous combat to the point where multiple independent constructs required the same effort as a single one had a year ago. The 5 golden lances fired in 5 directions, each one tracking a different masked construct, each one moving at the speed Naruto's intent could drive them. 5 impacts, 5 detonations, 5 hearts destroyed in a single synchronized strike that lasted less than a second. Kakuzu's body, suddenly heartless, suddenly without the mechanism that had kept him alive for a century, collapsed like a puppet with severed strings. His ancient frame hit the grass and stayed there. The stitches that held him together began unraveling on their own, the body recognizing, at last, the death it had been denying for over 100 years. Naruto holstered his gun. He walked back to where Tayuya waited beside the Dark Rider, her flute across her knees, watching the field with the expression of someone who had just witnessed something routine. "You didn't need me for that one either," she said. "I needed you to be here." She looked at him. He was already mounting the motorcycle. The words had come out of him without calculation, an admission that existed in the same register as the shaped chaos blast in Amegakure. She climbed on behind him and wrapped her arms around his midsection and said nothing, because nothing needed saying. The board was clearing. Kisame, Deidara, Sasori, Hidan, Kakuzu, dead. The Akatsuki field roster was down to ghosts and architects. Pain remained alive, retreated, rebuilding, licking wounds that went deeper than physical damage. Conan remained beside him. And the masked man? Obito, Madara, whoever stood at the apex of this organization's true hierarchy, remained in shadow, moving pieces that were running out. Naruto turned east. There was one more encounter waiting before the endgame. One more piece of the Uchiha legacy that required addressing. Itachi was alone when Naruto found him. The safe house sat in a forest in the Land of Fire's northern reaches, a single-room structure built from aged wood, its roof thick with moss, its single window facing east toward a dawn that was still 2 hours away. No guards, no traps, no secondary occupants. Just a man sitting at a table in the amber light of an oil lamp, waiting for something he had known was coming since the first report from Amegakure reached his ears. Naruto approached the safe house on foot. The Dark Rider was parked a kilometer back on the road. Tayuya was with it. He had asked her to wait, and for once she had complied without argument. Something in his tone had told her this was different. He entered through the door without knocking. The interior was Spartan. The table, 2 chairs, the lamp. Itachi sat in one chair with his hands folded before him. His Akatsuki cloak was draped over the other chair. He wore a simple black shirt beneath. His face was gaunt, thinner than any photograph in the bingo books had captured, with dark circles beneath his eyes that spoke to an illness consuming him from within. His Sharingan was inactive. His eyes were their natural shade, a deep brown that looked almost black in the lamp's warm light. They tracked Naruto's entrance without alarm. "Sit," Itachi said. Naruto remained standing. He studied the man across the table, the legendary killer, the clan butcher, the S-rank missing nin whose name could silence a room in any village. He looked at what was actually in front of him, a dying man in his early 20s who had been carrying a weight since age 13 that would have crushed anyone less committed to holding it. "You know why I'm here," Naruto said. "Yes." Itachi's voice was soft, strained by the illness, a sound that had to fight through fluid and failing tissue to emerge. "I have been tracking your progress since Amegakure. I know what you have been doing to Akatsuki's field operatives. I expected you within the week. You didn't run. There is nowhere to run that outpaces what you are, a ghost of a smile. And I have been running long enough." Naruto pulled the second chair from beneath the table and sat. The action was unconscious. Something in Itachi's demeanor made standing over him feel inappropriate. This was a conversation between two people who existed at the edges of their respective worlds. "Tell me about the massacre," Naruto said. Itachi told him. The words came without embellishment. The Uchiha coup attempt, the village's decision, Danzo's manipulation, Hiruzen's complicity, the order to eliminate the clan, every man, woman, and child, in exchange for Sasuke's survival, one brother preserved, the rest erased. And Itachi, 13 years old, carrying the burden of being the instrument that executed the sentence. He told Naruto about the aftermath, about joining Akatsuki as a double agent, about feeding intelligence to Konoha through dead drops that the village's leadership used without acknowledgement or gratitude, about positioning himself as Sasuke's ultimate antagonist, the goal that kept his brother alive through the fuel of hatred, the enemy that gave Sasuke purpose during the years when purpose was the only thing between him and self-destruction. He told Naruto about the illness, about the treatment he refused because living longer meant risking Sasuke's development, risking the timeline he had constructed for his own death at his brother's hands. Then he asked about Sasuke. "You fought him," Itachi said, "in the land of hot water. I received the report. I broke his ribs. I crushed his strongest technique with one hand. I told him I was the coolest and I walked away. Something flickered behind Itachi's eyes, something that might have been amusement if it existed in a face capable of expressing it fully. And he survived. He survived. Good. The word carried the full weight of 13 years of sacrifice compressed into 4 letters. Itachi looked at his folded hands. The lamplight caught the hollows of his face, the shadows that illness and exhaustion had carved into what was once the most gifted prodigy Konoha ever produced. He will need to stop chasing me. Whatever he builds himself around after I am gone, he needs to build it around something real. Then make him see it, Naruto said. He said it because it was true, and because Itachi was the only one in a position to deliver the truth to Sasuke in a way the younger Uchiha would accept. I'll give him the facts, but the meaning has to come from you. Itachi looked at him. The brown eyes were steady, clear, carrying a peace that came from knowing the end was near and the work was done. I wrote it, Itachi said. Everything, the mission briefing, the political context, my own testimony. 3 letters, one for Sasuke, one for Konoha's archives, one for public record. He gestured toward a sealed scroll on the table. If you would deliver the first, the others can reach their destinations through less extraordinary means. Naruto looked at the scroll. He reached forward and placed it inside his jacket. Done. They sat in silence for a moment. The lamp flickered. Outside, the forest whispered with wind that carried the smell of rain approaching from the west. What are you? Itachi asked. The question was soft, genuine, carrying the curiosity of a dying man who had seen everything the shinobi world could produce and was looking at something that transcended all of it. Something from somewhere else, Naruto said. Itachi nodded. The answer was sufficient. He closed his eyes. The breath he drew was rattling, fluid in lungs that were failing by degrees. His hands unfolded on the table. His posture relaxed by increments. The body releasing tension it had carried for years, muscles unclenching for the first and final time. Naruto sat with him. The lamp burned, the silence held. Outside, the rain arrived, a gentle sound against the mossy roof, filling the forest with the white noise of water falling through leaves. Itachi's breathing slowed. The intervals between inhale and exhale stretched. Each breath came softer than the last. His face in the lamplight achieved something it had never achieved in life: rest. The final breath came and went without fanfare. His chest settled. His hands stayed where they lay. The lamplight continued burning over a body that had stopped in a room that held its peace. Naruto sat for one more minute. He looked at Itachi's face, at the stillness there, at the cessation of a struggle that had lasted half a lifetime. Then he stood. He took the lamp and set it on the floor beside the door. He walked outside into the rain. The forest was gray and wet and smelled like living things growing. Naruto walked through it toward the road where Tayuya and the Dark Rider waited. She saw him approaching through the trees. Her flute was in her hands, playing a low melody into the rain, something without purpose beyond filling the silence. She stopped when he reached the road. Sasuke's brother is dead, he said. She looked at his face. Read something there. How? The right way. She put her flute away. They mounted the Dark Rider and rode south through the rain, the sealed scroll carrying Itachi's final message resting inside Naruto's jacket against his chest. 3 days after Itachi, Sasuke found them. The road running south through the land of fire, a highway between villages, lightly traveled in the early morning. The Dark Rider's engine humming at cruising speed, the landscape passing in a blur of green and gold, a figure in the center of the road, standing still, arms at his sides. Naruto slowed the Dark Rider to a stop 20 meters away. The figure resolved into Sasuke Uchiha, changed since their encounter in the ruined city. His posture carried something different, the tension that had defined him, that coiled, volatile readiness that preceded every encounter like static before lightning, was gone. In its place was something steadier. His arms hung at his sides with the relaxed weight of someone who had set down something heavy. His Sharingan was inactive. His curse seal was dormant, barely visible beneath the collar of his shirt. He wore simple clothes. He carried one weapon, a standard-issue katana at his hip. Everything about him said, "I am not here to fight." Tayuya's hand went to her flute. Naruto's hand went up, the signal. He dismounted and walked forward. Sasuke watched him approach. His expression was complicated, layers of something working through his features. When Naruto stopped 3 meters away, Sasuke's jaw worked once. His eyes went to the ground and then back up. "I heard about Itachi," Sasuke said. His voice was controlled but carrying weight beneath the surface. Naruto reached inside his jacket. He produced the sealed scroll. He held it out. Sasuke looked at the scroll. He took it. His hands were steady. "From him," Naruto said. His words, his reasons, everything. Sasuke's fingers tightened around the scroll. His eyes went wet, a shine that lasted 1 second before he blinked it away and set his jaw. He looked at the horizon, at the sky, at nothing. "I tracked you," Sasuke said. "For months after you left me in those ruins, I thought I wanted revenge. I thought I wanted to prove you wrong." A pause. His breath came and went. "You broke something. When you walked away, the thing I built myself on, the idea that I was the strongest, that everything I sacrificed was justified by that." He stopped. His jaw tightened. "You killed that." "Good," Naruto said. He said it without malice, a statement of fact. A thing that needed dying had died. "I've been watching what you're doing to Akatsuki," Sasuke continued. "Kasame, Deidara, the others. You're clearing the board." His eyes found Naruto's, red meeting the brown that had been hidden beneath the Sharingan for years. "There's a man behind it all, a masked man. He calls himself Madara Uchiha. I know where his staging ground is. I've spent 3 months mapping it through intelligence networks I built while working for Orochimaru." Sasuke reached into his coat and produced a folded map, detailed, marked with coordinates and notation in precise handwriting. "The dimensional access point is anchored in the land of fire. Here." Naruto took the map. He unfolded it. The coordinates pointed to a location 60 kilometers southeast, a patch of wilderness that appeared unremarkable on any standard survey. "I'm going to handle him," Naruto said, "alone." "I know." Sasuke accepted this without argument. The old Sasuke would have raged, would have demanded participation, would have insisted his power was sufficient, his right was absolute. This Sasuke understood the gap and did not waste energy pretending otherwise. "What will you do?" Naruto asked. Sasuke looked at the scroll in his hand. "Read this. Learn what actually happened to my clan, and then go back to Konoha and make them answer for it. That's a war. It's justice. There's a difference." Sasuke's eyes were steady. "I'm done chasing ghosts. The system that killed my family is still standing. The people who signed the order, the council, the elders, they're still in their offices. Itachi's sacrifice bought them decades of comfort. That's over." Naruto looked at him, assessed him. The Sasuke standing before him was someone he could leave behind without concern that the man would self-destruct or turn his fury outward without direction. This Sasuke had a purpose that was constructive even in its anger, a target that deserved targeting, a system that warranted confrontation. "Stay out of my way," Naruto said. It was the same instruction he had given before, but the tone was different. Less dismissal, more acknowledgement that their paths ran parallel without intersection. Sasuke nodded once. He turned and walked down the road toward Konoha, a figure growing smaller in the morning light, carrying a scroll that contained his dead brother's truth and a map in his memory that pointed towards something he could change. Naruto mounted the Dark Rider. Tayuya climbed on behind him. "He's different," she said. "He figured out what to fight for." She said nothing more. He opened the throttle. They rode southeast. The rain returned to Amagakure 3 days after Nagato's recovery, though recovery described only the medical reality, and the medical reality was a generous assessment. His body remained in the mechanical walker. His chakra reserves remained a fraction of their peak. The 6 paths, rebuilt, reanimated, but weakened, operated at perhaps 60% of the capability they had demonstrated in their first encounter with the Black Blur, but Nagato was still the Rinnegan's wielder. Still the most powerful dojutsu user alive with Itachi dead and Sasuke disengaged. Still the man who had declared himself a god and reshaped a nation by force of will alone. Conan stood beside him in the rebuilt command center. A room of metal and screens, and the constant sound of rain against the building's exterior. She had been watching Nagato for days, watching the way he stared at intelligence reports without reading them, watching the way his ringed eyes focused on distances that had nothing to do with the walls around them. "He's coming," Conan said. "I know. The others are dead. Kasame, Deidara, Sasori, Hidan, Kakuzu, every field operative we placed between him and us, he went through them all." "I know. Then what is the plan?" Nagato's eyes closed. The Rinnegan dimmed behind his lids. "The plan is to fight him, to use everything I have, to learn whether the Rinnegan, the eyes of the Sage of Six Paths, can stand against whatever he truly is. And if it can't," Nagato opened his eyes. The ringed purple burned with something that was neither confidence nor fear, something that existed in the space between acceptance and defiance. "Then I die as myself, which is more than pain ever was." 3 days later, Naruto arrived, the rebuilt sections of Amigakure's infrastructure. The portions that had survived his first visit, patched and reinforced in the months since, spread beneath a sky that was overcast but open. The eternal rain had returned to a natural pattern, falling when weather demanded rather than when a god willed it. The surveillance network was gone. The sensor rain was just rain now. Naruto rode through the city's outskirts without opposition. The streets were empty. Civilians sheltered inside, warned by whatever early warning system Nagato still maintained. The buildings passed in silence. The rain drummed against the Dark Rider's frame. He reached the central district, what remained of it. The blast crater from his first visit had been partially filled, rubble cleared, the ground leveled, a wide circle of flat earth where the epicenter had been. In the center of that circle, Nagato waited. The mechanical walker was positioned on the open ground, its metal frame glistening with rain, its operator sitting within it like a throne built from necessity. Beside it, spaced in a loose ring, the Six Paths stood reanimated, their bodies repaired, their chakra receivers replaced, their eyes carrying the reflected Rinnegan of their master. Nagato looked at Naruto across the distance. The rain fell between them. Naruto stopped the Dark Rider at the circle's edge. Tayuya dismounted. "Stay here," he said. She nodded. Once. Her flute was ready, but her posture was relaxed. The posture of someone who trusted the person she was watching to handle what was in front of them. Naruto walked into the circle. The rain soaked through his jacket. His red eyes burned against the gray. "You came back," Nagato said. His voice carried through the rain, amplified through the Six Paths speaking in chorus. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere. "You know why?" "Yes." Nagato's hands moved within the walker. The Six Paths shifted, their formation tightening, their combined focus concentrating on the single figure walking toward them through the rain. "I thought about what you did here for months. The hole in the sky, the destruction of the weapon, the annihilation of my paths in seconds. I replayed it in my memory every day. And I reached a conclusion." The Deva path rose from the ground, hovering, arms spread, rain bending around it in the gravity-distorted field of its power. "That I was never truly fighting you. I was fighting an approximation, a suppressed version. The rings you wear, they contain most of what you are, and you kept them on through our entire engagement. I took them off at the end. After the paths were dead, after the weapon had fired, you removed them to destroy the cannon. I never faced you unrestricted." The implication hung in the air. Ndato wanted to see it, wanted to face the full output, wanted to know whether the Rinnegan, the pinnacle of the chakra system, the eyes that saw everything within that system's domain, could perceive and counter something that existed beyond it. Naruto stopped walking. He stood in the center of the circle, surrounded by Six Paths and a walker containing the last god this nation had known. "This is your choice," Naruto said. "It is my only remaining choice." Nagato's voice carried finality. "Everything else has been taken. My organization, my operatives, my weapon, my village. What remains is the question, what am I worth, measured against you?" The Deva path raised its hand. Universal pull. The gravitational manipulation hit Naruto from the front, a suction force designed to rip targets toward the caster at lethal velocity. The ground between them tore upward. Rain reversed direction. Debris from the surrounding buildings launched inward. Naruto leaned forward and walked. His boots found purchase on ground that was being torn apart beneath them. Each step was a statement. Force applied against force, will against physics. The forward momentum of something that refused to be pulled by anything except its own intent. He walked through the universal pull, the way someone might walk against a strong wind. The Ashura path fired. modified body splitting apart, projectile weapons engaging from 6 ports, missiles, blades, concussive charges, all launching in a stream aimed at the figure walking through gravity's grip. The human path flanked left, the animal path summoned, 3 creatures materializing from smoke, each one enormous, each one charging. The Preta path moved to intercept. Absorption barrier active, positioned in Naruto's direct path as a wall of energy negation. Naruto raised both hands. A chaos spear formed in each palm. He threw them, one left, one right. The left spear hit the animal path summons in sequence, punching through all 3 bodies in a single flight line that curved through the air like a guided missile. The right spear hit the Ashura path mid-launch and detonated inside its chest, the golden energy interacting with the internal weapon systems and triggering a cascade failure that blew the body apart from within. The Preta path's barrier hit him. The absorption technique attempted to eat the chaos energy radiating from his body and failed, the same way it had failed before. The barrier collapsed inward. The Preta path's arms blew backward. Naruto's fist followed through the collapse and connected with the path's face. The body launched backward 40 meters and hit the remains of a building hard enough to bring the wall down on top of it. The human path reached for his head from behind. Soul extraction technique, fingers extended toward the base of his skull. Naruto's hand came up behind him without looking. He caught the wrist, twisted. The arm broke at the elbow with a wet sound. His other hand formed a spear and drove it through the human path's chest. The Naraka path, lurking at the formation's rear, ready to regenerate the fallen, opened the King of Hell's summon. The massive head emerged from the ground, jaws opening to receive the damaged bodies for restoration. Naruto looked at it. He looked at the Naraka path controlling it. He crossed the distance in a single burst of boot thrust speed and put his hand on the path's face before it could retreat. The chaos energy pulse burned through every receiver in the body simultaneously. The King of Hell's summon dissipated, its link to the controlling path severed at the source. 5 paths down, the Deva path remained hovering. Nagato remained in his walker. "You haven't removed the rings," Nagato said. His voice came through the Deva path alone now, singular, stripped of the choral quality that multiple paths provided. "I haven't needed to." The words hit harder than any technique. Nagato's eyes, the Rinnegan, the pinnacle, registered what they meant. Every path destroyed, every technique countered, and the rings were still on. The suppressed version, the approximation, was sufficient for everything Nagato's full deployment could produce. Nagato raised the Deva path's hand. The gravity gathered, pulling, compressing, building towards something beyond the standard Shinra Tensei. This was the technique that had leveled Konoha during Pain's original assault. Chibaku Tensei, the technique that created a miniature moon through gravitational compression. The ground beneath Naruto's feet tore upward. The rain reversed. Every loose object within 500 meters lifted from its position and flew toward a central point above the battlefield. A growing sphere of compressed earth and stone and metal that swelled with every second as more material was pulled into its gravity well. Naruto looked up at the forming sphere, then at Nagato. He reached for his soul. The outer path activated. Nagato's final gambit, the technique that reached beyond the physical into the interface between consciousness and body. The soul manipulation extended from the walker, invisible tendrils of spiritual energy reaching across the battlefield toward the junction point between Naruto's identity and his physical frame, between Shadow's memories and Naruto's flesh. The place where 2 existences met and merged. Naruto felt it arrive. The reaching force, trying to find purchase on the seam, trying to separate what had been joined, trying to pull the ultimate life form from its host, the way a hand pulls a blade from a sheath. His hands went to his wrists. The inhibitor rings unclasped. They fell from his wrists and ankles, 4 black bands dropping to the ground that was already tearing itself apart beneath him. The sky turned gold, brighter than Omegakure, brighter than any previous removal. The months of constant combat, constant expenditure, constant pushing of limits had expanded his ceiling the way a muscle grows under sustained load. The golden light erupted upward, a pillar that split the overcast sky above Omegakure and turned the rain clouds to vapor in a widening circle that pushed outward from his position at visible speed. The Chibaku Tensei sphere, still forming above, still pulling material, hit the expanding golden aura and stopped. The gravitational pull that was drawing stone and steel inward met the chaos energy output pushing outward and was nullified. The sphere hung frozen, half-formed, incomplete, its gravitational well unable to overcome the energy densities surrounding its target. Nagato's soul manipulation reached Naruto's interface point and hit the chaos energy matrix. The impact was immediate and catastrophic for Nagato. The reaching force met the fully unrestricted chaos field and was reflected, sent backward through the same pathway it had traveled, back through the spiritual connection, back through the chakra receivers, back through the walker's mechanical systems and into Nagato's own body. Everything connected to the Rinnegan's output network burned. The chakra receivers, embedded in Nagato's spine, his limbs, his very nervous system for decades, overloaded simultaneously. The mechanical walker's system sparked and fried. The Deva path above lost its animation and fell from the sky like a puppet with severed strings, crashing to the broken ground in a heap of dead limbs and extinguished eyes. The Chibaku Tensei collapsed. The half-formed sphere disintegrated, its gravitational cohesion gone, the compressed material exploding outward in a rain of stone and metal that spread across the sky. Naruto stood beneath the falling debris in his pillar of golden light and let it vaporize before reaching him. Each fragment hitting the aura and dissolving into particulate matter that drifted away like ash, Nagato's walker crumbled. The mechanical frame, already stressed beyond its tolerances by the energy feedback, gave way joint by joint. Nagato fell from his throne. His body, frail, wasted, the product of decades of self-destruction in service to power, hit the wet ground and lay there. The Rinnegan was still in his eyes, dimming, the purple rings losing their glow, the eyes becoming less weapon and more organ, less power and more flesh. He looked up at the golden sky through eyes that saw, for the first time in years, something beyond their own system's architecture. Naruto walked toward him. The golden aura receded, pulling back into his body as the inhibitor rings reformed on his wrists and ankles with the clicks of locks engaging. The sky faded from gold to gray. The rain returned, falling from clouds that were already reforming over the hole he had torn. He stood over Nagato, looked down at the dying man. Because Nagato was dying, the energy feedback had destroyed what remained of his already failing body. The receivers in his spine were charred. His chakra pathways were burnt through. He had minutes. "What are you?" Nagato asked. The question came out as a whisper, barely audible over the rain's return, carried on a breath that was shorter than the one before it. Naruto looked at him. The red eyes carried something that was neither pity nor contempt, something closer to acknowledgement. One weapon recognizing another. One creation standing over another creation and understanding the distance between their maker's ambitions. "I am Shadow, Shadow the Hedgehog, a researcher's dream, an ultimate life form." He said it the way someone states their name at a meeting. Without drama, without emphasis. A simple truth spoken into rain. Nagato's eyes closed. His lips moved, forming words that the rain swallowed before they could reach the air. His chest rose once more, fell, did not rise again. The Rinnegan dimmed to nothing in a dead man's skull. Naruto stood in the rain for one more breath. Then he turned and walked back toward the circle's edge, where Taiuya waited with her hair plastered to her face by the downpour, and her eyes following him with unwavering focus. He reached her, looked at her. "Done?" she asked. "Almost." They rode days later. They returned to what remained of Omegakure's infrastructure. The village was in transition, civilians emerging from shelters, structures being assessed for habitability, the particular stirring of a population that had lived under divine authority and was now facing the terrifying freedom of its absence. Konan found them, or they found her. The distinction was irrelevant. She waited at the entrance to the rebuilt administration building, the one structure Pain had always maintained as his seat of governance. Her blue hair was damp from rain that fell on her with the same indifference it fell on everyone now. Her expression was composed but empty, the face of someone processing a grief so complete It had passed through the other side of overwhelming and arrived at clarity. "He's dead," Conan said. A statement of known fact rather than a question requiring answer. "Yes." She looked at Naruto for a long time. Then she said, "I have information about the man behind Akatsuki, the one who created the organization through Nagato's grief and used it as infrastructure for his own objective." She reached into her cloak and produced a sealed folder, thick with documents, diagrams, and the particular density of intelligence product assembled by someone with 20 years of proximity to power. His name is Obito Uchiha. His technique allows dimensional displacement. His objective is the revival of the Ten Tails and the casting of an infinite genjutsu on the world's population. Naruto took the folder. He looked at the weight of it, the physical mass of 20 years of observation distilled into paper and ink. "The Rain Village is yours now," he said. He looked at the buildings around them, at the village that had survived 2 catastrophic encounters in its heart and was still standing, still populated, still carrying the momentum of existence forward despite everything. "The rain is already gone from the sky. Build something." Conan said nothing. Her expression shifted by degrees, the grief remaining but something else entering alongside it. Something that looked like the faintest possible beginning of forward motion. The particular look of someone who had been handed a purpose at the exact moment their previous one had ended. Naruto turned and walked back to the Dark Rider. He mounted. Tayuya climbed on behind him. They rode out of Megakure under a sky that was gray and open and belonged to nobody. The dimensional access point was exactly where Sasuke's map indicated. A clearing in dense forest, 60 kilometers southeast of Konoha's outer perimeter. Unremarkable terrain. No structures, no visible indication that the clearing contained anything beyond grass and old trees. But beneath the surface of the visible world, a fold existed, a permanent warp in the dimensional fabric that connected the physical plane to a pocket space anchored by sealing apparatus planted decades ago. Naruto felt it from 200 meters out. The dimensional fold had a signature, the particular wrongness of space being bent out of its natural configuration. His senses, attuned to spatial anomaly through years of chaos control application, registered the warp as a dissonance in the local field. Something was there that should not have been there. He stopped the Dark Rider at the clearing's edge, killed the engine. The forest was still around them, birds singing, wind moving through leaves, the natural sounds of a world unaware that something existed beneath its surface that threatened to rewrite its fundamental nature. Tayuya dismounted. She looked at the clearing. "I feel something, like standing too close to a broken seal. The air tastes wrong. The dimensional access point, the final staging ground. So this is it." He looked at her. She looked back. The moment held, charged with everything they had been through together and everything that remained to be done. Her red hair caught the afternoon light. Her eyes, brown, fierce, alive, held his without flinching. "I'm going in alone," he said. Her jaw tightened. The muscle flexed beneath her skin. "No." "Tayuya." "I said no. I've been beside you through everything. Through Orochimaru's mountain. Through Root. Through every damn Akatsuki member on the roster. You're not walking into the last one without me. What's inside that space is beyond everything we've faced. The man who engineered Akatsuki. The man who orchestrated the Uchiha massacre. And behind him, if Conan's intelligence is accurate, someone who should be dead and isn't. I don't care. You should. Tell me to stay." Her voice was hard. Her eyes were harder. "Tell me to stay and I will. But say it meaning it." He looked at her. The memories rose. Maria, pressing her hand to the glass, asking him to protect the world below. Maria falling. The doors closing. The inability to reach her in time. The failure that had defined everything Shadow was and everything Shadow became. He would put Tayuya in that position over his own dead body. "Stay here," he said, "because if I come back and you're gone, I will tear this country apart looking for you. And if I don't come back, if you don't come back, I'll come in after you. Tayuya, try to stop me." He looked at her. She looked at him. The impasse held for 5 seconds. He reached inside his jacket and produced her flute, cleaned and maintained since the day he recovered it from the road. He held it out. "Stay here," he said again. "Not because I think you can't handle it, Because I need to know you're alive on the other side when I walk back out. She took the flute, her fingers wrapped around it, her jaw unclenched by a fraction. Something in her eyes, something raw and unguarded and visible for only a moment before she buried it, said everything her mouth would never form. "Fine," she said, "but if you take longer than an hour, I'm coming in. I'll be faster than that." He walked into the clearing. The dimensional fold existed at its center, invisible to the eye, but a blazing wrongness to his senses. He reached for it with one hand. His fingers found the boundary where normal space ended and the pocket dimension began. The fold responded to his touch, recognizing the chaos energy's fundamental compatibility with spatial manipulation and opening like a door that had been waiting for the right key. He stepped through. The pocket dimension was vast, an artificial space that stretched in every direction, gray stone ground, a sky that was no sky, but rather an infinite expanse of dim light without source. And at its center, 300 meters from the entry point, the apparatus, the Ghetto statue, the husk of the 10 tails, stood chained to a platform of inscribed metal. Its remaining arm, the other destroyed in a Megakure by Naruto's Chaos Blast, reached upward in a frozen, grasping motion. Ceiling arrays covered every surface, the platform, the chains, the statue itself. Energy conduits ran from the statue's base toward a central control podium where the activation mechanism waited. Between Naruto and the statue, Obito Uchiha stood. The spiral mask was on his face, orange, whimsical, carrying a single eye hole that revealed the Mangekyo Sharingan beneath. His Akatsuki cloak was gone. He wore battle gear, reinforced mesh, armored plates at key points, and the particular readiness of someone who had known this encounter was coming and had prepared every contingency his mind could produce. Behind the mask, the transplanted Rinnegan occupied his other socket, Nagato's eye, extracted months ago through means that required access and opportunity, and the particular ruthlessness of someone who viewed allies as resources. "You found it," Obito said. His voice was different from the intelligence reports, deeper, carrying weight that the Toby persona's clowning had concealed. "I'm impressed. I thought Konan might hold her silence longer." Naruto walked forward. His boots echoed against the gray stone, his red eyes fixed on the masked figure ahead. "The mask is wrong for you," Naruto said. "You wear a dead man's name the way you wear a dead man's eye." Obito's single visible eye narrowed. Konan was thorough in her disclosure. "She told me what you are, a student of the fourth Hokage, a man who was supposed to die at Kanabi Bridge and didn't, a man who watched the woman he loved die and decided the entire world should pay for it." Naruto stopped 20 meters from Obito. "The Eye of the Moon plan, the infinite Tsukuyomi, a genjutsu to put the world to sleep because you can't accept that reality exists without her." The air between them vibrated. Obito's stance shifted, the weight redistributing, the Kamui eyes spinning faster behind the mask. "You say that like it's an insult," Obito said. "I'm building a world without loss, without death, without the kind of pain that makes monsters out of children." His voice carried conviction, real, absolute, the particular certainty of a man who had been building toward a single moment for 20 years and was standing in front of the last obstacle between himself and completion. "What are you building? A trail of bodies? A bounty sheet? You destroy everything you touch. I'm trying to save everything." "You're trying to run away," Naruto said, "from a world that hurt you, and you're willing to erase everyone's free will to do it." His hands went to his sides. The inhibitor rings hummed on his wrists, a low frequency that only he could feel. "I was built to protect this world. A girl asked me to, and I'm going to honor that request by making sure it stays real." Then we're done talking. Obito activated Kamui, his body shifted, becoming translucent, the edges of his form blurring as he phased out of physical space and into the dimensional layer that his technique accessed. He moved through the pocket dimension's architecture the same way he moved through the real worlds, stepping sideways out of reality and reappearing wherever he wished. Intangible to everything that existed solely in the physical plane, he appeared behind Naruto. A kunai materialized in his hand, drawn from the dimensional storage space during the phase transition. His arm swept forward in a strike aimed at the base of Naruto's skull. The same attack angle, the same assassination geometry. that he had used 100 times across 2 decades of operating from Shadow. Naruto fired a chaos spear backward without turning. The golden lance passed through Obito's body, the intangibility active, the spear continuing through empty space and embedding in the ground 30 meters behind. Obito's kunai reached for its target. Naruto stepped sideways. Chaos control, a micro-teleportation that moved him 3 meters to the right in 0 elapsed time. Obito's kunai hit air. His momentum carried him forward into the space Naruto had vacated. They separated, faced each other across the gray stone. Kamui makes you intangible, Naruto said. You phase into an adjacent dimensional layer to avoid physical contact. Correct, the same dimensional layer this entire pocket space is built on. Obito paused. Behind the mask, something flickered. The first suggestion of uncertainty entering a face that had worn certainty like armor for 2 decades. Naruto placed his hands together. Chaos energy concentrated between his palms, building, compressing, reaching a density that made the gray stone beneath his feet crack from proximity. The energy gathered into a sphere that was not a weapon, not a blast, not a projectile, but a frequency, a resonance, a signal broadcast at the specific wavelength that chaos energy used to interact with spatial dimensions. He pushed the signal outward. The sphere expanded, invisible, passing through the pocket dimension's physical layer and entering the dimensional substrate beneath. The same substrate Kamui accessed, the same layer Obito used for intangibility. The signal filled the substrate the way water fills a glass. Completely, universally, every point in the dimensional layer that Kamui could access, the space between physical realities where Obito hid when he needed to become untouchable, saturated with chaos energy. Obito felt it immediately. His Kamui eye spun wildly. He activated intangibility, the reflexive response to threat, the technique that had kept him alive for 20 years by making him literally impossible to hit. He phased out of the physical layer and into the substrate, into chaos energy. The scream that followed was audible in both dimensions simultaneously. Obito's body, shifted into the Kamui layer for intangibility, was surrounded by an energy type that his technique had no mechanism to avoid. There was nowhere to go. The entire substrate was filled. Forward, backward, above, below. Every point in the dimensional space he had used as his sanctuary was now occupied by the same force he was trying to escape. He phases back into the physical layer. His body solidified, and it was damaged. Burns across his right side where the chaos energy had contacted him during his seconds in the substrate. His cloak was scorched. His mask was cracked. Kamui leads into a space that is already mine, Naruto said. Your sanctuary is gone. Obito's hand went to his mask. He pulled the cracked pieces away and let them fall. Beneath was a face, scarred on one side by old damage from Kanabi Bridge, the transplanted Rinnegan purple and spinning in its socket, the original Mangekyo red and desperate in the other. He looked younger than Naruto expected. Despite the scars, despite the decades, the face beneath the mask was that of someone who had stopped aging emotionally at the moment of his trauma. The Rinnegan, Obito said. His voice was strained. His hand moved toward the purple eye. I still have. Naruto was already there. Chaos control, a teleportation that covered 20 meters in 0 time and placed him directly in front of Obito with one hand already extended. His fingers pressed against the bone above the Rinnegan socket. The chaos energy pulse was targeted. A burst aimed at the transplanted tissue, the foreign cells that connected Nagato's stolen eye to Obito's nervous system. The Rinnegan burned out. The transplanted integration unraveled. Cellular connections dissolving under energy that dissolved every chakra-based system it touched. The purple light died. The socket sealed over with scar tissue that formed in real time. The body healing around the absence, closing the door that the stolen eye had held open. Obito staggered backward. His hand went to the now empty socket. His remaining eye, the Mangekyo, his original, spun with panic and fury, half his power gone. Kamui still functional, but the dimension it accessed was hostile now. The Rinnegan that had been his backup, his insurance, his borrowed power, destroyed. No. The word came out strangled. His composure shattered. 20 years of planning, 20 years of building, 20 years of becoming something beyond what he had been. And it was crumbling in seconds. This isn't. I am Madara Uchiha. I am the architect of. "You're Obito Uchiha," Naruto said. "A boy who watched someone he loved die and broke instead of growing. You've been broken for 20 years, and everything you built since, Akatsuki, the mask, the plan, is just the shape of the break." Obito attacked. His Mangekyo spun and he used Kamui offensively, warping sections of space around Naruto, trying to tear chunks of reality away and send them into the substrate where chaos energy now lived. The attacks were reckless, desperate, carrying the particular fury of someone who was watching their entire identity disintegrate and fighting the process with everything that remained. Naruto's hands went to his wrists. The inhibitor rings unclasped. They dropped to the stone floor with 4 small sounds that might as well have been thunderclaps. He did it without announcement, without escalation in his expression or posture. He set the rings down the way someone sets down a coat they are done wearing. A simple action that happened to change the fundamental nature of the environment within a 500-meter radius. This is who I am. The golden light was total. The pocket dimension, already an artificial space, already operating outside normal physical law, responded to its unrestricted output like a tuning fork responding to its base frequency. The gray stone floor turned gold beneath his feet. The colorless sky above took on the same hue. The entire dimensional space vibrated at the frequency of his power, resonating, amplifying, reflecting. Obito's Kamui warps hit the field and dissolved. The spatial manipulation technique met an energy density so extreme that the very concept of warping space became meaningless. You could not warp something that was being held in place by a force orders of magnitude greater than anything the Mangekyo could generate. Obito stood in the golden light with one eye and one functioning technique, and the expression of a man who had just understood, with absolute clarity, that he was going to die in this space. Naruto raised one hand. A chaos spear formed, larger than standard, brighter, carrying the full weight of unrestricted output behind it. He threw it. Obito activated Kamui. The reflexive dodge, the technique that had saved his life 1,000 times, the instant phase into another dimension. His body went transparent. He slid sideways into the substrate, into chaos energy at full unrestricted saturation. The scream cut off halfway through. His body, phased into a space that was now entirely composed of the energy it was trying to avoid, ceased to exist in a coherent form. The Kamui technique, meant to carry him away from danger, carried him directly into the heart of it. He did not phase back out. The pocket dimension went silent. Obito Uchiha, the architect, the masked man, the shadow that had manipulated gods and villages and decades of history from behind a spiral of orange porcelain, ceased to exist. His body was gone. His eye was gone. His plan was gone. Behind the platform where the Gedo statue stood, something stirred. A figure rose from what appeared to be a meditation posture, seated cross-legged on the gray stone, facing away from the battle, as though the entire encounter with Obito had been an entertainment to be absorbed passively. Long hair, red armor, a fan-shaped war weapon leaning against the stone beside him. Madara Uchiha turned around. He was everything the legends described and more. The physical presence alone was extraordinary. Height, breadth, the particular density of a body that had been a weapon for over a century. His armor was the distinctive crimson of the Warring States era. His hair fell to his waist in a black waterfall that moved with its own weight. His face was angular, aristocratic, carrying the expression of a man who viewed everything before him as entertainment of varying quality. His eyes were Rinnegan, both of them. Purple and ringed with the full depth of the sage's power, the genuine articles, grown through his own biological process rather than transplanted from another's skull. The most powerful dojutsu in existence, carried by the most powerful shinobi in history. He looked at the space where Obito had been, then at Naruto. His expression carried something that might have been curiosity, might have been amusement. Hard to tell with a face that had been practicing inscrutability since before most current nations existed. Interesting, Madara said. His voice was deep, resonant, carrying the particular timbre of someone who had outlived entire civilizations and still found themselves difficult to impress. The puppet master falls and the final act reveals itself. You are the black blur, and you're Madara Uchiha, the real one, the only one. Madara reached down and lifted his war fan, the gunbai, a weapon that had blocked tailed beast attacks and redirected jutsu at army scale. He held it at his side with the easy grip of someone holding a natural extension of themselves. Obito was useful. His kamui provided access. His obsession provided motivation. But the plan was always mine. The concept was always mine. And its completion, he looked at the Gedo statue behind him, requires your removal. Naruto's unrestricted output still filled the pocket dimension. The golden light radiated from his body in continuous waves. The stone floor hummed beneath him. The artificial sky above blazed with reflected energy. "You built a plan across a century," Naruto said. "Manipulated everyone who ever trusted you. Created an organization to hunt living weapons. Orchestrated massacres. Engineered wars." He looked at Madara the way someone looks at a structure they intend to demolish. And all of it, every piece of it, stops here. Madara's Rinnegan focused on him. The purple ring spun, analyzing, measuring, cataloging the energy output with the perceptive capability of the most powerful sensory dojutsu ever created. His expression shifted by a degree, the amusement deepening into something that approached genuine interest. "Your energy exists outside the chakra system," Madara said. "I can see that much. Something foreign, something engineered rather than inherited." His stance shifted, the weight settling, the gunbai rising into a ready position, the body language of a warrior who had been waiting for something worth his effort. "I have waited my entire life for an opponent who forced me to take them seriously." "Then take me seriously." Madara activated the perfect Susanoo. The manifestation was immediate and total. Blue-white chakra erupting from his body in a torrent that built upward and outward into a form that exceeded anything a human should contain. The construct rose and rose and rose. 15 stories, 2025. A samurai shape armored in plates of hardened spiritual energy, carrying a blade the length of a city block. Its face a mask of stylized fury that looked down at the landscape with the imperious judgment of something too large for the world it occupied. The perfect Susanoo filled the pocket dimension's sky. Its head touched the colorless expanse above. Its feet crushed stone beneath each step. The blade drew back, a motion that displaced air on a scale that created weather patterns, that generated wind from nothing, that made the dimensional space itself tremble from the sheer volume of force being moved. The blade swung. Naruto flew upward. His boots fired at maximum thrust. Acceleration that turned his body into a gold-red streak climbing toward the Susanoo's face. The blade passed beneath him, hitting the stone floor of the pocket dimension and splitting it for a kilometer in both directions. The ground opened. A canyon formed in a single stroke, the weapon's passage carving the artificial landscape like a knife through bread. Naruto reached eye level with the Susanoo and hovered there. He looked into its face, the mask of spiritual energy that represented Madara's will made manifest. Behind the mask, within the construct's interior, Madara stood with his arms crossed and his Rinnegan blazing. "Faker," Naruto said. His voice carried across the distance, carried through the spiritual energy of the construct, reaching Madara's ears with perfect clarity despite the gulf between them. "I think you're the fake hedgehog around here. You're comparing yourself to me? Ha! You're not even good enough to be my fake." Madara's expression hardened. The amusement left. What replaced it was the particular intensity of a man who had been called the strongest in the world for a century and had just been dismissed as a copy. Bold words from a child. Bold words from someone who's about to prove them. The Susanoo's free hand reached up, chakra condensing in its palm, forming a bow that spanned the width of the construct. An arrow materialized, a shaft of concentrated spiritual energy that drew back against a string of pure force. The arrow released. The projectile traveled at speeds that crossed the pocket dimension's full length in under a second. A spiritual energy lance aimed at the golden figure hovering before the construct's face. Naruto caught it. His hands closed around the arrow's shaft, the spiritual energy hitting his palms and struggling against a grip that held it through sheer force rather than technique. The arrow pushed him backward through the air, his boots firing to arrest the momentum, his arms straining against the construct's full output compressed into a single projectile. He redirected it downward. The arrow hit the dimensional floor and detonated, a blast that cratered the already damaged stone for 200 meters in every direction. The shock wave climbed upward. Naruto rode it, using the blast's updraft as additional momentum. Climbing higher until he was above the Susanu's head, looking down at its crown, he gathered everything. Chaos blast at full unrestricted output, the culmination of every ounce of energy his body could produce, condensed into his chest and building until his ribs ached and his vision went white gold, and the world itself seemed to hold its breath. If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have. He released it downward. The sphere of destruction descended onto the perfect Susanoo like a second sun falling from the sky. The impact point was the construct's crown, the highest point of Madara's ultimate technique. The chaos blast hit the spiritual armor and pressed against it with the full weight of an energy type that existed outside the rules governing spiritual constructs. The Susanoo held. The armor, a manifestation of Madara's will, a technique that represented the exterior of his very soul, resisted. 3 seconds under sustained pressure that was evaporating the dimensional floor beneath it, that was turning the pocket space's architecture into vapor, that was making the artificial sky above crumble and reveal the void beyond. 3 seconds was an eternity at this scale. Then the armor cracked. A single line, running from the crown downward through the face, through the chest plate, branching outward like lightning frozen in spiritual energy. The crack widened. More appeared. The chaos blast pressed through the weakening structure with increasing ease, as each fracture opened new pathways for the energy to exploit. The perfect Susanoo shattered. The construct came apart in pieces, massive fragments of blue-white spiritual energy falling away like the panels of a building collapsing. Each fragment hit the ground and detonated on its own, adding to the rolling destruction that was remaking the pocket dimension's landscape into a wasteland of craters and shattered stone. Madara fell from the collapsing Susanoo's interior. His body dropped 30 stories toward the ruined floor, his crimson armor gleaming, his Rinnegan blazing with a purple that competed against the gold filling the sky. He landed on one knee. The impact crater from his landing was 10 meters across. He looked up. His face carried something it had never carried during his century-plus of existence. Something beyond surprise, beyond admiration. Something that lived at the border of those emotions and touched, just barely, on the territory of fear. Recognition. "You are," Madara said, and his voice carried weight. The weight of a man choosing his last words to outlast his body. Something I did not account for. Naruto descended. The golden aura around him burned at a level that turned the air itself luminescent. Every oxygen molecule in his proximity excited to incandescence by the energy density. He looked at Madara, the strongest shinobi in history, the architect of decades of suffering, the man whose plan required the enslavement of every conscious mind on the planet. He looked at what the natural system's pinnacle had produced and found it insufficient. The strongest thing this world ever produced, Naruto said, and still a fake, a copy of real strength, built from other people's pain, other people's eyes, other people's suffering. He raised his hand. The energy concentrated, a final strike building in his palm. Golden light that burned like a star held in human fingers. The real thing is standing right in front of you. The strike descended. Madara's Rinnegan flared, every technique the eyes possessed activating simultaneously in a final desperate defense. Gravity manipulation, soul manipulation, elemental conversion, the Pretapath's absorption. Every tool in the most powerful dojutsu's repertoire deployed at once against a single incoming strike. They were insufficient. The chaos energy passed through every defense like light through glass. The techniques unable to interact with an energy type that existed beyond their operational framework. The strike reached Madara, connected with his chest, and delivered the full concentrated output of an ultimate life form's unrestricted power directly into the body of the most dangerous man the natural world had ever produced. Madara Uchiha's Rinnegan went dark. Both eyes, the purple rings that had seen everything, that had built an empire of manipulation across a century, that had declared themselves divine, dimmed and closed. His body hit the cracked stone and lay still. The crimson armor remained pristine, unmarked, undamaged. The body within it simply stopped. The pocket dimension trembled. Without its architects, without Obito's Kamui maintaining the access point and Madara's will sustaining the interior structure, the space began collapsing. The artificial sky crumbled inward. The stone floor tilted. The dimensional fabric itself started unweaving, the edges of the space fraying like cloth coming apart at the seams. Naruto picked up his inhibitor rings. He placed them on his wrists and ankles. They clicked into place. The golden light receded. The dimensional collapse accelerated around him, the space folding inward from every direction, the architecture dissolving into nothing. He walked toward the entry point. Behind him, the Gedo statue, the last piece of a plan that had consumed lives across generations, was being consumed by the collapse. Its stone form crumbled as the dimensional fabric holding it in place unraveled. The chains dissolved. The platform fragmented. The husk of the 10 tails became debris in a space that was ceasing to exist. Naruto reached the entry point. The fold, the door between the pocket space and the physical world, was still open but shrinking. He stepped through it in the same instant the collapse reached the fold's boundaries. He emerged into sunlight. The clearing in the Land of Fire's forest was unchanged. Trees, grass, birdsong. The ordinary world continuing its ordinary existence without awareness that the space beneath it had just been unmade. Tayuya stood beside the Dark Rider. Her flute was in her hands, gripped white-knuckled, held like a weapon she had been prepared to use. Her face carried the specific expression of someone who had been counting seconds and had reached the edge of the number she was willing to count. She saw him. Her entire body went through a visible transition, tension releasing from every muscle in a sequence that started at her shoulders and ended at her toes. Her grip on the flute loosened. Her chest expanded with the breath she had been holding. "Everyone dead?" she asked. "Everyone dead," she exhaled. The sound was enormous, the release of pressure that had been building since he walked into the fold. Then she said, with feeling that compressed an entire story's worth of emotion into 8 syllables, "Holy goddamn shitting hell!" He almost smiled. The expression touched the edges of his mouth, a millimeter of movement that was more than he had shown in 4 years of existence, and that carried more warmth than most people's full laughter. He walked to the Dark Rider and sat on the ground beside it. His back rested against the motorcycle's frame. The metal was warm from the sun. The grass beneath him was soft. The sky above was blue and unbroken and real, genuinely real, the kind of sky that existed because physics demanded it, rather than because someone's will maintained it. Tayuya sat beside him. Her shoulder touched his. Her flute went back into its case. She pulled her knees up and wrapped her arms around them and said nothing for a long time. In the tree line at the clearing's edge, invisible to anyone without enhanced senses, but perfectly visible to Naruto, Sasuke Uchiha stood watching. He had followed from a distance. He had seen Naruto enter the fold and emerge from it minutes later. He had seen the fold collapse behind him. He understood what it meant. Sasuke turned. He began walking south toward Konoha. In his coat, Itachi's scroll. In his memory, the truth about his clan. In his posture, the particular forward momentum of someone who had watched the final enemy fall and was now moving toward the constructive purpose he had chosen for the remainder of his life. He did not look back. Naruto felt him go, registered the departure, let it happen without acknowledgement or farewell. The sun moved across the sky. Shadows lengthened. The clearing existed in its ordinary, extraordinary peace. "You shaped the blast," Tayuya said. Her voice was low. "In Amegakure, you shaped the chaos blast around me. I remember. Why?" She looked at him. Her eyes were unguarded, the walls down, the profanity and the fury set aside, the raw person beneath visible in a way she allowed only in moments like this. "You never told me why. You said it was necessary, but that's not an answer. Tell me the real reason." He looked at the sky. The blue stretched above them, infinite, open, carrying the particular beauty of something that simply existed without asking permission or approval. "A long time ago," he said, "a girl asked me to protect the world. She asked me because she believed the people in it were worth protecting. She believed it enough to die for it." The memory of Maria was present, a warmth rather than a wound, an instruction rather than a loss. I didn't understand what she meant. For a long time, I protected people because she asked me to. Because the promise existed, because I owed her. He looked at Tayuya. His red eyes carried something she had never seen in them before. Something open, something that had been behind walls since the night he woke up in that facility and chose to be alone. I will fulfill her wish. I will protect you, because you are the reason the promise makes sense to me now. You are the answer to why she asked. Tayuya looked at him. Her eyes were shining. Her mouth was pressed into a line that was fighting against its own corners. Her jaw was tight with the effort of maintaining composure against something that was hitting her harder than any technique ever had. She said nothing. She leaned sideways. Her head rested against his shoulder, the red hair falling across his jacket, her warmth pressing against his side. She closed her eyes. He let her stay. The sun continued its arc. The clearing held its peace. Two people who had been discarded by systems that viewed them as tools sat in the grass beside a motorcycle that ran on something beyond this world's understanding, and they breathed together, and the breathing was enough. Eventually, the sun reached the horizon. The sky turned orange and pink and gold, a spectrum of color that painted the forest in warmth. Naruto stirred. Tayuya lifted her head. He stood. He offered her his hand. She took it, her grip firm and warm, and he pulled her to her feet. He started the Dark Rider. The engine growled to life. That sound, that specific sound that had preceded him into every battle and carried him out of every ruin. The sound that meant motion. The sound that meant forward. Tayuya climbed on behind him. Her arms wrapped around his midsection. Her grip was firm. Her chin rested on his shoulder. Her breath was warm against his ear. He gunned the engine. The Dark Rider launched forward, out of the clearing, onto the forest road, into the fading light of a day that had seen the last enemy fall. The wind hit them full force and tore at their hair and clothes and carried the scent of a world that would wake up tomorrow to find itself free of a plan that had been running against it for longer than most of its inhabitants had been alive. The road opened ahead, empty, winding, stretching toward a horizon painted in the colors of ending and beginning simultaneously. Behind them, bodies cooled, organizations crumbled. Architectures of manipulation collapsed into the vacancy left by their architect's absence. The world would continue. The world would rebuild. The world would do what it always did, spin forward into whatever came next, carrying its scars and its survivors and its impossible stubborn momentum. Naruto rode. Tayuya held on. The engine hummed beneath them. The stars would come soon. The same stars he remembered from a window on a space station, a lifetime ago. In a body that was gone, but a soul that remained. He opened the throttle all the way. The Dark Rider screamed into the gathering night, a sound that faded into distance, a red taillight shrinking to a point against the horizon, and then gone. The road carried them forward. The road had always carried them forward. And behind them, behind the engine's growl and the wind's roar and the fading light, the world was free. And the ultimate life form was riding away from his own legend. And the only person who mattered was holding on. He was Shadow. He had always been Shadow. And Shadow answered to nothing except the road ahead and the arms around his chest and the promise of a girl who had believed the world was beautiful. The night arrived. The engine faded.
What a movie. Shadow Naruto really said, "I will protect you," and meant it with his whole chest. If you felt that chaos energy, smash like, subscribe for more insane what-ifs, and drop your favorite moment below. The road never ends, legends. See you on the next ride. I'm the coolest.